Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMA LOTN. This week, we're going over UFC Vegas 50, headlined by Magomed Ankalaev and Thiago Santos, in which will more than likely vault Magomed Ankalaev into either a title fight or a number one contender spot. But Thiago Santos might play spoiler as well, so I can't wait to break down that fight with the guests I'm going to be announcing very shortly here. Shout out to everybody that joined up for the propping you up yesterday. That was great to do that show. I apologize for the people looking for me on IG Live last week. I did Instagram it out. I was out with the wife and we're doing a comedy show that night, so I ended up skipping on that. But the IG Live will be back this evening. No need to fret. So if you guys are one of those folks that like to hop on the IG, talk to your boy for a couple minutes and drop your bets, that is the place to do so. We're going to do it again tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. But for right now, we got the Ultimate Weigh-In Show going on, and I'm going to be bringing on a very special guest. This guy is absolutely demolishing the field in the Lock of the Night and Dog of the Night competition. He's either in first place or second place. I think he took his first loss this past weekend on the Dog of the Night challenge, but since then had gone, or before that, had gone 6-0 to recapture that first place spot. Absolutely amazing analysis from this guy, one of the sharpest dudes in the space. Let me quit jacking him off here and let me bring him in here. We got my guy Anders from Fimbul Fight Picks. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm happy to finally get you on. Now, clarify this for me. Is this the first like podcast appearance that you're doing?
Yeah, it is.
So I popped your cherry essentially. I
Yeah,
got you into it. I'm bringing you to the masses, and it's about time, man, because you're a very sharp dude. You've been tracked for a while now as well, and you're absolutely slaying the game. Why haven't you already started your own podcast? That's the big question. When somebody's as successful as you are, there's a lot of wisdom for you to share. Well, what's the holdup?
well, I did have my logo made with a podcast like a year ago or so, but I just had so much stuff going like in the background that I just didn't get it done. But also because I feel like most podcasts, I see a lot of MA Kappa start podcasts, but they stop within like 2 episodes or so because
Yeah,
they just, you know that yourself, it can be a burnout sometimes. It's
for
a
sure.
lot of work. You have to do a tape, you have to do a recording, all this stuff, right? So I was more focused on my team, getting my picks out to my guys, get the process under control and then maybe get going later on, you know. But
Yeah.
it hasn't happened yet. So I'm happy you invited me on the show because that really got me going for all this stuff. So that's great, man.
No, for sure. Everybody needs to hear from a sharp brain like yours as well. You're very, you're not as vocal as most guys. I mean, you like to sit in the background a little bit. You like to just do your thing, and I respect that as well, right? Just focus on the craft. We don't need to focus so much on the glitz and bells and whistles of MMA Twitter and all that stuff. So I'm glad that you stay focused and have your head on straight for that. So as a fan for this card. We're going to be talking a lot of betting. Obviously, that's the whole point of the show. But I want you to put your fan hat on right now and just tell me what you're most excited about for tomorrow's card.
I think it's gonna be a first fight, Tafan versus Azamat. I think that's gonna be the best fight of the night.
Interesting.
I like that one. It's two tanks going up against each other. I just love that. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be, and both are great clinch fighters. So I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen in that fight.
Perfect. Well, we might as well not waste any more time. Let's just get right into it. That is the first fight of the night, and I'll let you kick it off right after I drop the odds for the folks here. The odds currently sitting at minus 190 for Azamat and plus 160 the return on Tafon and Nchukwi. So let's get you to kick this one off, man. How do you see this light heavyweight scrap going down?
Yeah, well, speaking of the odds, like they've shortened quite a bit. I think we had like Azamat like what minus 130, minus 135 or so early on. Now he's shortened quite a bit now. Um, I was liking Asama in the beginning, so I figured I should take Tafon. I feel like that's always a really good idea. Like if you like fighter A, start with researching B, because there's so many biases in this game. The anchorship bias, recency bias, all these
Yeah.
survivorship bias, all these ones. So you want to research your fighter you don't really maybe want to bet on. So I took Tafon because I like Tafon. I like Tafon versus Mike Rodriguez. And like Tafan, in my opinion, he's actually a really, really good clinch fighter. That's one of his best attributes. Like he doesn't have the best cardio, obviously. He does seem to tire in round three, but otherwise he's kind of okay. It's kind of decent. I feel like he fights well to his cardio. Like his style is just really good for that cardio. Because if he was being more aggressive than he already is, like if he was pushing forward more than he is, he'd probably gas himself out. What I like from him is that like sometimes you like bull rush forward into the clinch where he does his best work. And what I love about him in the clinch is that he will go for underhooks, He will land knees, elbows, punches, and also he will keep his head really close to the opponent's body, which is really good because you put on a lot of pressure. When he fought Mike, Mike was able to separate him in the clinch. Like I think Taffin, he had the underhooks, but then because he just started throwing punches, he lost the position. But otherwise, Taffin dominated that position. He also has pretty powerful leg kicks, but he actually doesn't kick that much. I think he only really was kicking a lot in the Pickett fight. He really like that, like right head kick and the calf kicks there. He was doing well. He landed clean. He also just looks like an absolute tank. I've said that for so many times since I saw him in the Contender series. And in that fight, like against Pickett, he was able to use his strength, his power, and I feel like if you allow Taffin to just press forward like this and keep you in the clinch, let him have the control, you're just going to lose the fight. That's the lose condition against Taffin. But as you saw in the Park fight, where I was in Park, he's really weak to jabs, and that's where Park fought a super smart fight. I'm not sure how many noticed that, but he kept the fight in the middle of the octagon, so he could just circle around all the time and just jab his face off. And in that fight, Taffin landed what, like 2 groin strikes, and
Yeah.
also I poked him. And after the first groin strike, Park even ate it. Like he was not a wimp like picking up a mic. He ate it because he was in a good position, right? Um, and I feel like if you maintain that octagon control, you can win. Now I don't expect Asamat to do that, but like Taffin just has zero head movement. I tried speeding up to like 2 times the speed, and I didn't see any head movement whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I feel like that can be a downfall in this fight as well. Though I do feel like he has probably a pretty good chin. But I feel like if he tries to, let's say, take Asama down here, which he took Park down once, where he just got a better position, but it's like he can only keep a control if he has a weight advantage, which he often has, or like he just tries to lay heavy on him. But otherwise, he's just a fish out of the water on the ground, and that's a really bad idea against Asamat. And against Park, he got beat up real bad there. So he just has to rely on this strength, and I feel like it's only in the clinch here that he can do well. But in the clinch, he's a top tier fighter, and also, what I also like about him is that he's reliable. So you can expect the same, and I think we're going to see the same thing here again. Um, one funny thing I want to say though is it just me, or is when he fought Mike Rodriguez, I was like, wait, he just fought that guy before. Like I was thinking that Mike was Pickett, and they fought almost the exact same. I feel like they were both fighting timid, scared,
Yeah.
and they were just not doing anything. If you just start landing on Taffin, you're gonna win. So Taffin, this one, I feel like he's a good clinch fighter, but that's it.
Yeah. Is that the side that you're going to be going with here? You like that plus 160 on him?
Oh no, no, I don't like Taffin. Do you want more moment to go over Asamat, or I
Yeah.
was
Yeah. I
really want
want
to get
you to
your
break
opinion?
down that fight. Like, I want you to tell me
Okay.
who you think wins. What's the prediction for that fight?
I'm gonna go with Asama, definitely. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
value in him. I'll cap him around 70%.
Yeah.
Like Asama, I think he's underweighted. I know it sounds weird to say that someone is underweighted when they're favorites, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people bash people when they bet favorites. Like, oh, it's easy to win on favorites, but it's not. If you check like better May tips, you see
Yeah.
that people lose on these small favorites. People lose on these big favorites. It's hard to win on favorites. You have to pick with wide favorites, and I think
Yeah.
Asamat, he is a wide favorite because he's fast. He got power in his left hand, in his right hand. He got great distance movement, good footwork. Like it's not just like he's jumping in and out. He's actually like some people fighters, they will just jump forward from back. They're not really maintaining distance. It's just cool, I think. But he actually maintained within like 2 minutes. He already had adjusted the distance. Like he avoided a body kick. He moved away from a low kick, and then he starts to find these sniper shots. He did that on Matthews. He did that on was it Gutu, I think it was. And when
Yeah. In a
he's
sonch. Yeah.
yeah, Anderson's, and when he was on the ground, he's really focused ground and pound. That's what I liked about like Anderson Silva. He's very focused and very brutal. He's good elbows, good punches. He will soften his opponents up with good punches to the body. He's also able to do a variety of like takedowns, body lock, double leg, single leg. And what I like about him there was I saw in one fight he was switching from a double leg because he couldn't take him down because he was too big. So it's just a single leg, just lift him up and put him on the ground. It's just really, really nice to see. Really good fight IQ. And when he was pushed off on the ground, he was fine with just standing up, just kicking a bit, just taking his time, and then jump right back into the guard there. Like we saw this against Muhammad. And I feel like maybe one of his weaknesses, if there is any, is like he's probably weak to leg kicks, but I just like his distance management. And
Yeah.
he's also maybe a bit undersized, but I don't think it's anything major. I really like his fight IQ. I think he just has good power, good takedowns. He mixes it up really well. And anyone who lacks speed, like if you lack leg kicks or speed, or you don't have a best takedown defense and so on, I mean, if you don't have that, then you're gonna struggle. And Tafan, he doesn't have speed. He doesn't have the best takedown defense. And in a 3 round fight, I'm not worried about as much cardio here. He's 32, and I also think being southpaw will help him a bit with maybe finding that KO. So yeah, definitely give me Asamat at even a plus minus 200. I'll definitely take him. And he's also
Yeah.
my luck of the night. I'm really confident in this guy.
Interesting. I do have him put up in a parlay with something just to get a little bit of DJ action. But in terms of the opening odds, that actually surprised me. I missed the fact that he was at plus 125 as the opener, and then for a long time he was sitting around minus 130, and then a ton of love coming in on him now, bringing him up to that minus 190 spot. But I largely agree with a lot of what you said in regards to the Tafon Nchukwi and Mike Rodriguez fight, and even the Jamie Pickett fight. That's where you see Tafon at his best because his opponents are almost intimidated in terms of actually throwing any offense to him, either because of the power that he's bringing in return, or even the kind of the respect that he demands inside the cage. Almost a lot of people are kind of like scared of that. Jun Young Park was not scared of that. He's staying active with his jab, putting offense together. We obviously saw it in there was one more fight that's slipping my mind at this point in time. But if you allow him to push the pace, he's going to push the pace that he wants. But I feel like Asmat will kind of land on him a little bit more, land takedowns if he needs to. And I like that you're talking about his range management because he's very springy in terms of like backwards, forwards, and even laterally as well. He does a really good job in terms of getting out of the way of big strikes. I feel like Tafon is always going to be the slower guy in the cage, at least more often than not. And I think that Asmat will have the speed advantage here, which should allow him to kind of land when he wants to, or even close the distance to get a takedown if he needs to as well. Luckily, like you said, he's not the biggest light heavyweight, so he kind of uses that to his advantage, being the more agile guy in the cage. But even Tafon, the guy made 185 pounds. Not saying he needs to be at 185 pounds, but he's not the biggest light heavyweight in his own right either. So I do think that Asmat will do a good job in terms of establishing his game plan. And yeah, I bet him around minus 175 with a couple other legs here that we'll talk about once we get deeper into the card. But yeah, like that you have that confidence right off the bat on the first fight of the night. But let's keep this thing moving along because we got 13 other fights to get through. So we got Guido Cannetti going up against Chris Moutinho. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 160 for Moutinho and plus 140 the return on Guido Cannetti. It seems like the line has started to widen now because I remember earlier in the week is about minus 145 for Moutinho and now and plus 125 for Cannetti. But like we said, it's starting to move in the Chris Moutinho way. I'm not as sold on Moutinho. I get he's getting the line movement favor right now because people just like betting against Guido Cannetti, who's like 40, 41 years old, seems to be falling off a little bit of a cliff. But his performance in the Mona Martinez fight was really not as bad as I thought it would have been, right? A lot of people thought Martinez would go in there and starch this guy right off the bat. A lot of people bet the fight doesn't go to decision. I think the under 2.5 was all the way up at like minus 280 at a certain time. But Cannetti's durability held up. He took a lot of those shots on the chin and kept chugging forward. And then even he landed some big shots on the return and stayed very active with the leg kick, which I think he's going to be able to do here against Chris Moutinho. I'm not sure how you can have uber confidence on the Moutinho side. Again, he's a solid striker, precious striker in his own right, but I see him get clipped over and over again with overhand rights. And you know, he even shows some weaknesses to leg kicks as well. There was that one round against a Sheik, I believe the guy's name was, in the first round, he was getting lit up with leg kicks and kind of just touched up. And it seemed like a Sheik almost ran out of gas, allowing Moutinho to take over in that second round and get that knockout. Cannetti has showed decent cardio, even at this prime age of 40 years old. It seems like he can still go out there and put together a solid 15 minutes if he needs to. I want nothing to do with this fight, but the one thing that did stick out to me a lot was the KO for Cannetti at plus 500. I don't mind if you want a little bit of a DGen action shot on this matchup. I think that might be the way to go. But in terms of an actual prediction, I actually think Moutinho will touch him up from the outside and probably take home a decision victory. It will be a violent fight. Both guys take tremendous damage, but I think the Cannetti durability issues are being overblown. and I do think that Moutinho has some solid durability in his own right. So I think it'll be the Bull versus Matador type matchup here, but I do think that the Matador might have some moments where he's the one moving forward in terms of Chris Moutinho and landing some good shots. So I'll go Moutinho decision. No real confidence on that. Again, come fight time, if I'm a little bit juiced up, I might throw a little bit on that Cannetti KO plus 500. Other than that, I want nothing to do with this fight. Well, what are you seeing in this fight? Who do you think takes this one, Anders?
Yeah, man, I'm fully with you there. I do think that Chris is gonna take a wonder fight. What's really interesting, if you check on BetMA, out of the 3 decision fights that Cannetti had, he actually always wins round 1, then he starts to lose in round 2, and then lose round 3. But all judges and the fans always give him round 1,
Wow.
which is really interesting when he's a dog now, right? Especially if you're into live betting, you can bet him now and then maybe switch later maybe at worst even odds or so.
Yeah.
Maybe secure yourself some profit right there. But yeah, like Cannetti, at 42, I feel like it's a high and high risk that he's gonna show up with some wear and tear. What I don't like about him is that he allows himself to be controlled on the outside. He always pretty much allows his opponents to take the center of the octagon, and again, he has no head movement, which is a really really big red flag for me. Like whenever I check fights, I always check, if they're in a clinch, underhooks, head movement, do they throw something when they separate? Because lazy fighters don't, good fighters do, and he
I
has no
love when
head
they do
movement.
that. I love when they do that. That's always an opportunity when most fighters kind of have their guard down. Throw something, even if it just
Exactly.
lands on a guard where they actually block it. At a certain point, you're going to clip somebody, and it's going to, result in a fight-ending altercation, maybe, or a fight-ending sequence. Sorry, continue. Sorry.
Exactly. And it's such a small thing, but it
Yeah.
just tells you so much about the fighter. And for me, like fighting, intuition, all this stuff, it means a lot. That's why listening to interviews is useful, even, right? Because sometimes interviews are just talk, and other times it's really telling something. Sometimes you can just see it in their eyes. And my issue with Cannetti here is when I speed it up to twice, 2 times the speed, he had no head movement. He
Yeah.
just doesn't move it. He's so stationary. Like that's why, like, you can just like, yeah, I mean, he has serviceable boxing, it's okay, and when he's forced to trade, he also has some decent power. But at this age of his, it's just gonna get worse and worse. This nasty kicking game he has, though, like, if you just allow him just to kick your legs off, he's gonna win. Maybe you can do that on Chris, but I don't think Chris is gonna allow that. I think he's gonna push the pace. Like when Martinez fought him, he could have fought so much smarter. He was just staying outside when he could have pushed in and really like outboxed him and taken these leg kicks away from him. But he just didn't. He just let Cannetti chew up his legs. But
Yeah.
whenever he would put on pressure, right, he was doing really, really well. Even the commentators noticed this, and usually I feel like the commentators don't know what they're talking about, but they actually noticed this. And also, like, I feel like Cannetti's takedown defense was kind of lacking in that one. And like when we saw a guy like Cannetti versus a guy like Batgirl, I mean, when you're so stationary, you just ask him to
Oh yeah.
BKKO, right? I mean, it's the easiest thing ever. And also one thing I don't like, if this fight should go to the decision, I know many people don't think it's gonna go to a decision, but if it does, the leg kicks are just not gonna get counted as much. We see that over and over. If you have the same amount of leg kicks than like someone who strikes, it's not gonna get counted. You have to have a bunch of leg kicks like Petrosian had. Then the judges
Yeah.
takes notice. If you do a lot of calf kicks and it's visible, it can be, maybe they'll take a they're gonna notice it, right? And yeah, Kennedy does do that, but I don't feel like he does it enough that he's gonna get the credit for it that he deserves. So yeah, like I'm not really high on that guy. I think you're right in that this is a pass fight. And Chris Moutinho, yeah, like the commentators in that fight when he was fighting, was it Salas? They were like making him out to be I don't know, like striking artist. It was so crazy. Like it was
Dude,
just
that's so funny that you brought that up because I believe in that first breakdown I did for the O'Malley fight. That's the exact same thing that I touched on as well. I'm like, they make him sound like he's this crazy
yeah,
kickboxer that's just like Tyrone Spong level or something like that. I'm like, guys, slow down. Stop showing off your bias here to the possible
exactly.
hometown guy, right? Yeah, no, that was hilarious. I'm
Like he was
glad
just
that you
getting
brought that up.
tagged over and
Yeah.
over, and they were just talking about him like he was doing so damn well. I was like, what are they talking about? Like if the
Yeah,
last wasn't so damn gassed, he would have probably knocked him out, or like done the same
exactly.
thing as yeah, like. But one thing he does do well, like which is a bit weird, like when he's on the ground, he actually has some really brutal elbows, and he sliced the last open that fight. And that's what I find a bit weird, that he can be so bad. For example, with his striking, right? But on the ground, he's actually pretty good. He's also doing pretty well with his submissions. And one thing, like he has a good understanding of what to do in the clinch. Like he was diving for underhooks. I'm gonna be saying this a lot because like when people dive for underhooks, I love that. It's a sign of
Yeah.
a high IQ fighter. Even if he sucks at
They're not
everything
giving up
else.
seconds. They're not giving up minutes. Like they're trying to reverse the position almost immediately.
I say that's why a guy like RDA, like he's so damn good, right? But he's
Yeah.
gonna lose so many fights because he just accepts bottom position whenever he's on the ground. But yeah, like he was defending well there with the underhooks, and he was going for knees, and yeah, but otherwise, like he's just a walking punching bag. It's not
Yeah.
a guy you want to bet as a favorite usually. I do understand why he's a favorite, and I was kind of leaning him in the beginning, but yeah, I think he's gonna take over. But I really don't see why you want to bet him like pre-fight if you got access to live betting, because he's probably gonna lose the first round, or it's gonna be kind of close. Like if anything, you can probably put your money as a modifier. Like that's how I keep thinking. Think about this like stocks. Do we not put like 2 units on Moutinho here when you can put them on Asamat or some modifier at about
Yeah.
the same odds? I don't really feel like that's worth it.
Yeah.
He's also just kind of flat-footed, and also he doesn't really have much head movement. Like Sean O'Malley is just piecing him up, right? The stoppage was kind of weird. What did you think about the stoppage versus Sean O'Malley? I thought it was kind of
They should have
like an
kept
iffy
it.
stoppage.
If he was giving him that much time to actually like take that much damage and he's like seconds away from reaching the judges' scorecards, just let him reach the judges' scorecards. Let him take that W in terms of going the full 15 minutes when he wasn't supposed to technically, right? What was the KO line on O'Malley that night? Probably like minus 250 alone. So like it's pointless in that. You are gonna be going with Moutinho. Is that your prediction for this fight?
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Okay.
with Moutinho. Maybe a decision, maybe like late round 3 or something like that.
Perfect. Love it. All right. Let's get on to the next one here. We have a 185-pound fight between Cody Brundage and Dalcha Lungiambula. In terms of odds, we got minus 130 on Lungiambula and plus 110, the return on Cody Brundage. Anders, I'll let you kick this one off, brother. Who do you think takes this matchup between these two middleweights who, they might be not in good graces if they get another loss here, especially on the Lungiambula side? How do you see this one going down?
It's a close fight, man. I feel like the odds are about correct on this fight. It's a really, really close fight. If I'm to pick, probably lead. I'm probably gonna lean Brundage here. I do understand why people take Dalcha, because personally, when I first saw Brundage against Maximo, I was really disappointed. Like, this is your debut. He's shooting from the outside. I mean, Kraus was giving him hell for what he was doing. I was like, what are you doing? This is your debut, and he was fighting with quite low fight IQ, and I was really disappointed in him. I thought he could have won that fight against Maximo. But that said, since seeing Maximo, like how he has performed and seeing how game he is, I went back to watch that fight for this card, and he actually impressed me a lot more than when I was watching it live. Probably because I had money on him back then. I was kind of annoyed at
Not to
him.
mention short notice fight for him there in his debut.
That's true. That's an excellent point. Yeah, that's true exactly. I feel like in this one, a big thing we have to notice is that Brundage has a good corner. He has Kraus, and he listens to him. We saw that in round 3. Kraus is the best at making people win round 3. And Dalcha, he does not listen to his corner. Like they told
Yeah.
him versus I forgot the name now.
Mario.
Yeah, exactly. When he fought him, they told him stop staying on the outside, start pushing forward. That's what he's good at. But he just kept doing the same thing, and that's just frustrating to see. And I feel like the corners here is going to have an impact. And if you check the stats again, he loses round 3 really, really often, Dalcha. You can check on Ben May on that. He has a decent chin. Like, he's very strong, obviously, but those muscles are going to tire him out. And striking wise, I don't feel he have much of a jab. He just throws looping shots all the
Yeah.
time. He does throw with intention, but he misses a lot. And he's just easy to read, easy to game plan for him. A guy like Kraus is going to do that. And it's also easy to draw out his shots to tire him out. And, like, yeah, sometimes he can push forward, and he does sometimes land some decent heavy combos, but he's not much of a leg kicker either. And yeah, on the ground, I feel like I'm gonna give it that. On the ground, he has some nasty elbows. We saw that in Perez. He was actually doing pretty well to the head, to the body, splitting Perez open. But otherwise, he doesn't seem to have much of a sub game. I mean, he had the Kimura sub attempt on him, but it was like Perez was going for, like he was defending. I think the only reason why Dalcia was able to defend was because he was so strong. That's really
Yeah.
it. Sort of like Marina versus Stern. I feel like one of the reasons for his survive was because he was just strong. But otherwise, yeah, there's not much. action from him. Like he keeps a decent pressure, decent top control when he had that, not firing too much. He does have a judo throw, which is decent. But the problem I feel like is that whether he does that or watches forward, like lifting you up, he just spends so much energy on it, and he's so inactive. So this fight for Brundage, the longer it goes, the better. He probably wants a decision in this one, or maybe a late submission in this one, because like Dalche is just gonna be worse and worse for him, and he also doesn't die for underhooks. And yeah, he fights some hands sometimes, but really him not listening to his corner, that's a huge red flag for me. And that's why I'm gonna lean Brundage here, and I think we're gonna see some improvements in him. Because Brundage, I feel like people were a bit hard on him. I watched that on myself, but he's a decent wrestler. He also actually has quite powerful hands and good calf kicks, but he doesn't utilize kicks that much. But he could, because he has a really good calf kick. We saw that use versus Maximo, and it forced Maximo to switch his stance early on, already in round one. And his striking is mainly, it's just heavy shots, decent power, nothing major. And when he defends takedowns, which I don't think Dalch is going to do though, he's able to land some really good elbows. That's why he split Maximo open. But versus Dalch, which can be a downfall to him, is he lacks head movement. He's very stationary. His footwork leaves a lot to be desired, I feel like. He's quite flat-footed. It's quite easy to jab his face off. And if you can keep it standing, like we saw that versus Crop Shot, like he was able to land straight jabs right through Cody's high guard. Even had the guard up, he just lands jabs over and over. So he doesn't have the best fight IQ either, because he shot against Maximo in round two really far out, right?
Yeah.
Crafts gave him shit for that. Yeah, like versus Crop Shot, I feel like he was getting tired. We didn't see the corner there after the second round. So I'm kind of interested, was he tired? Because he got the submission really fast in round three. Was that because he knew that he was going to lose a fight? I don't know about that. I mean, he did really well against Maximo in round three after all. Also defensively, he does a lot of good stuff. Like he was quite impressive versus Maximo.
In terms of like, you think that his wrestling is actually going to be the difference maker in this fight, essentially, right? You do think that he'll get the better of Dalcha, get him to the ground, and kind of grind him out? Is that where you're trying to lean in this fight?
Yeah, that's what he needs to do to win this one, right? Because
Yeah.
like Maximo is just so relentless. I don't think we're gonna see the same thing. Like with Maximo, he was gonna win this one, I think, by a very high chance. But Bonjic, it's gonna be a really close fight. It's gonna matter if he can get him down. I don't think he's gonna win, striking wise. I think he's gonna win round three, lose round one. So again, it's a fight I was leaning maybe betting Bonjic, but yeah, I'm gonna pass this one. I definitely understand people betting Dulce. I see there can be value, but I feel like this is a tough fight to call. But I'm gonna lean Bonjic if I'm gonna pick anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on the Dolce side, but not much interest in actually like betting it. Again, Dolce is probably not the best soldier to send out there, especially with the guy on paper who's going to be better than Dolce, especially in the grappling realm, right? But personally, I haven't been the most impressed with what I've been seeing from Brundage on tape. I don't know if a lot of that has to do with the Maximo fight. Again, even the Crop Shot fight, he goes into that fight as a minus 300 favorite, but still manages to drop that second round. A lot of that, even with him on top in that round. But then, like you said, he kind of got a fire lit under him going into that third round, and eventually got that quick finish. But I feel like Dalcha, he's moving down to Sanford now. He followed his last opponent down to Sanford MMA, trying to like get that last resurgence in his career. He's 35 years old. He's really got to get it going right now. So I'm interested to know and see if he actually like. Sometimes he seems a little timid on the feet. So if he actually lets the power go and tries to demand the respect similar to what Tafon and Nchukwi does, obviously Nchukwi a much better technical striker than Dalcha. But if he can get that power, start landing it, and get Brundage to kind of respect him, and maybe start shooting those takedowns from far out, maybe he can stuff some of those, and maybe he can have his own grappling success as well. I am kind of surprised though, because I've seen nothing but love for Brundage, from yourself and obviously from other people that I've been speaking to. But to still see Dalcha as a favorite leads me to believe that there's a lot of people that feel that his strength could come into play here, and he could probably start controlling where this fight goes. I'm going to leave I'm going to lean Dalcha, but this is a pass fight for me, no doubt about it. This next one, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts about, and I'll kick it off here. We got Sabina Mazo going up against Miranda Maverick. In terms of odds, we got minus 320 on Maverick and plus 250 the return on Sabina Mazo. I'm a big Miranda Maverick fan, man. After her last loss against Erin Blatchfield, I went back and watched some of her interviews, and she seems very fired up in terms of making sure that doesn't happen again. One thing that she noted was that she had never lost a first round in her career before, up until that Erin Blanchfield fight, and she just did not know how to kind of battle back and try to start stuffing the takedowns and start getting her game going. But She said she seems to have addressed that. She seems to have addressed the one issue that she felt she had in the Barber fight. Although a lot of people believe she deserved to win that fight, she said it seems like I took the foot off the gas in that third round, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to make it as obvious to the judges that I deserve to win a fight. And I feel as though she knows that if she just goes after takedowns here, she should have a multitude of success in terms of Sabina. We've seen that kind of be her downfall, right? Alexis Davis, even any other fighter that's wanted to get her to the ground, they can get her there. And then we've even seen a girl like Justine Kish beat her up on the feet just by being quicker to the punch and kind of, not allowing her to cherish that range advantage that she normally has over her opponents. Miranda Maverick is nasty with her striking. She doesn't mind taking one on the chin just to be able to, close that pocket and get her strikes off. But I feel as though she's going to come together with a really good game plan, try to drag this fight to the ground, and then really just rough up Sabina Mazo there. I think she could even finish her from on top, honestly. I think that her KO line is currently sitting around plus 400 or plus 500, plus 550, actually. I think that's worth a little bit of a sprinkle, but I don't mind parlaying Miranda Maverick in the spot. We spoke about it quickly right before we went live here that, this seems like a chalk heavy card, and I feel like she's one of the better chalks that are on the card as well. I don't know how you can watch that Sabina Mazo tape and think that she's going to be able to stop that like relentless pressure that Miranda puts on when she is really when she's pushing the gas. And coming off of 2 losses, gotta believe it's going to be a very fired up Miranda Maverick, and she wants to go out there and put on a statement. She looked great at the weigh-ins today. She looks ready to go. I'm excited to see how she performs tomorrow. But I really like her in the spot, and I wouldn't bat an eye at anybody looking to parlay her either. How do you see this one going down, Anders?
I'm fully with you, man. It's really hard to see Miranda Maverick lose this fight. I don't think we're gonna be seeing Mazo for that much longer in the UFC. I'm not sure if she's gonna be cut after this one, but I think she's gonna be cut really soon. Even if you do like Mazo in this one, if you check May again, like he loses round 1 nearly always. Marek wins round 1, so it makes perfect sense to take Marek. She's probably gonna drop down to like minus 600 pretty fast, I feel.
Yeah.
One thing I guess you can say for Mazo is that in the Davis fight, which was really odd, Davis didn't try to take her down. She just took her down whenever she would kick. Otherwise, she didn't really try, which was really weird. But I feel like a girl like Mazo, right, like even against Maverick now, she should not be kicking. But that's a whole game. She should not be kicking. But she can't help herself. Sooner or later, I think she's gonna kick in this fight, and she's gonna be taken down. I mean, Maverick, when I watched her against Robertson, I was a little bit disappointed in that fight. Against Evan Blanchfield, I was on Blanchfield at that time. She was just completely outmatched. This is not going to be the same fight with Marcel. I mean, Blanchfield. You can. That's one of the things I talk about for intuition. If you want to see a good fighter who's just mature, watch I think after the first or second round in that fight, like Blanchfield, she's just so focused. She sounds so mature. You can just see it in her eyes. The intuition and with how the personalities are in this game means so much. And you touch on that Marek is fired up. I think it's going to be the difference maker on this one. I think she's going to wash through her. She can win with striking. She can take her down. And also this leg kicking game, it's not even like it's hard. Like, yeah, it's decently hard leg kicks. Like with Kish, she got her down, which is a bummer because it was on Kish there too in the slowdown.
I was there too.
That's a bummer, man.
We're like a minute away from catching that.
We deserve that win so much. It's so
I
annoying when you're on
know.
the dog and you're on the right side, man.
Hey, I got
But
it back with Alexis Davis though, so I was happy about
yeah,
that.
exactly. It was good we got on that one because we deserve that money, man.
Yeah.
But like I feel like her kicks, right? It's not even like that quick. It's not like Edson Barbosa level. They're quite slow. They're quite easy
Yeah.
to spot. And on the ground, I mean, she does have an armbar and heel hook like we saw against Davis, but it's not really offensively used. It's just like to try and get up or be a little bit defensive because she was taught that in training, right? It's nothing special. She does have that wide body kick. She landed on an Akapoa a few times, but I don't think it's gonna matter here with Marek. She's just gonna be eating that. That heavy leg kick from Marcel is just too slow. And yes, he landed good strikes in Davis, but I mean, who can't beat Davis up? It's not gonna
Yeah,
happen with Marek.
exactly.
Marek is so physical. Like whenever I
Yeah.
think of Marek, and this is meant as a compliment, I think of a freaking wino. Like she's just
Yeah.
such a bulldozer, right? And I don't really see what Marcel can do here. It's really hard to say. It's really hard for me to say that they should be betting at minus 300. Like I have it still better personally. I'm still leading that, but I do feel you can probably cap it at around maybe 85% or so. So there is still some value in this one. And yeah, if you're into parlays, you can definitely parlay her because it's just really hard to see her lose this fight. Americ, she's just so good. I mean, she also has quite high output if you check on Better May.
Yeah,
The whole thing about checking output, takedown defense, stats, all this, I'm really skeptical about that because I know there's a lot of data guys out there who try to use like programs who use the stats and all that, and
every
every
fight
single
is
one I
different
see,
though. Like
yeah,
that
exactly,
that's
and and
that's the thing.
and you don't have enough stats, and that's why these guys fail over and over. Uh, and one of the most things we hear is like the takedown defense. Like the commentators, the fighters, someone has 100% takedown defense, as if that matters. They haven't even checked who's it against, what kind of
Yeah,
takedowns, when was it, where was it, all this stuff, right? But with Maverick, I feel like you can trust the stats. She's high output. I think she's gonna either win a very really dominant decision, or she's gonna ground her out on the bottom. It's just really hard to have anything for Mazo here. If she's gonna win, maybe some high kick that hurts her. Maybe Maverick can struggle with getting her down because, I mean, she is quite tall, Mazo, but yeah, it's just hard. Mary can win this fight any way she wants, and I don't think she's going to be arrogant here. I think she has pretty good IQ, a pretty good fight IQ. Like in the Masu, no, was it the Barber fight? That one, when she went for a double leg, she timed it well, and when she ducked, when she level changed, right, she pushed through. A lot of fighters, when they level change, they will just take the double leg and stop. But if you keep pushing through, you're gonna tip that balance, right? And that's what Marek did. And she can do this on a tall girl like Marcel here. So yeah, give him Marek to win this by decision or a dominant finish, maybe in the later rounds, taking the fight.
I
But
love
if
it.
you want to if you want to parlay her, you can do that.
Even if Mazo wants to give those legs like she was given to Alexis Davis, so we'll take that as well. As long as Maverick looks to ground this fight, it shouldn't even be close. If she goes out there and tries to fight a 15-minute kickboxing fight, that's how Mazo can make this close. But I'd be surprised if Miranda is content with something that is so as obvious as you got to be inside the pocket, get those takedowns, or even just try to rough her up in that close quarters. Again, Mazo's pretty good in the clinch as well as we saw in the JJ Aldrich fight, but I think that you're dealing with a completely different rhino like you're talking about with Miranda Maverick. She's very difficult to deal with in those spots. I'm glad that we're on the same side there. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We got Damon the Leech Jackson going up against Kamuela Kirk. In terms of odds, we currently got minus actually it's a pick 'em fight. This one, it was the weirdest one in terms of odds and how it was all flying around all week because Kamuela Kirk opened up as a plus 125 dog, immediately got down bet down to about minus 150, and then since then a ton of money coming in on Damon Jackson to make this a pick 'em fight. I'll kick this one off to you first. What do you think of the odds for this fight? And then ultimately, who do you think gets their hand raised as well?
Well, I'm kind of bummed I missed out on the Jackson actually. Plus 130. I probably maybe I made a small bet on it. I'm not sure. Maybe I kind of like him in this fight. Like I was thinking I was gonna like Kirk in the beginning because I had him versus Mark I bet him back then.
Likewise.
But I mean, did you think he won that fight? I think he lost that fight. That one.
It was, you know what? I remember betting it and then just being happy that I cashed it. But then when I went back and watched it, it was a lot closer than I remember. I
Yeah.
actually remember like Marquand. I surprised that I didn't remember that Marquand landed a takedown in that last round. I know he got reversed or something in that round as well. But the fact that Marquand, who notoriously not a great gas tank, was able to still have success against Kamala late in that fight, I think that Jackson will be able to kind of replicate that, maybe be more effective. But yeah, continue, please.
Yeah, like I think in that fight, actually, the only reason that why Kirk won the third round was because McMahon did a really stupid takedown and then he landed on top. Like he played his sleeper fight there himself, but yeah, he did deserve that win there. But yeah, like Jackson, he's one of those gritty, determined fighters. That's how they win. Often they win from behind. I mean, he's not the most skilled. He does have cardio for days,
Yeah.
and this grit and how relentless he can be with his takedowns. Body lock control, like we saw versus Rosa. I mean that can maybe give him a win here in the later rounds where he can just maybe out volume Kirk, who's because Kirk is not he's not that active actually. I was actually surprised how inactive he is. I mean the win
Apparently, he
against
had after the Makwan Americani fight. Apparently, he had a
yeah
broken orbital, so he had to get that fixed, and that's why he's been out for almost a year now.
okay, that's actually good info. I didn't know that. Usually by the way we talk injuries and so on, like I try not to put too much into it because I mean sometimes I feel like fighters just eat through it. Like one of the good examples for that is like the headbutt in the Benavides versus Figueiredo fight, like people were
Oh
talking
yeah.
about, it was such a big thing, right? But in the second time around, you just got smashed. This again, sometimes it matters, other times it doesn't matter. You really have to just, it's very subjective. Sometimes it matters, sometimes not. But yeah, going up to okay, that's interesting. This fight though, I feel like Kirk should be a favorite because he's like he's a better skilled, but I totally it totally makes sense why Jackson and this fight has become even now. Why people have been betting Jackson, why I want to be on Jackson, because this grit and determination is gonna matter a lot because he's so relentless. I think he can tire Kirk out. When he was versus Rosa, we saw him tripping him well. He was scrambling well. Got the back of Rosa. He landed knees. He was able to drag Rosa down. He actually reminded me a little bit of what Colby Covington does a lot to like RDA, George Masvidal, and so on. Not that he's the same level, right? But he kind of did the same stuff, and like he was able to get full mount. He was able to land some heavy shots, and all I think he was just doing pretty well. And it's like exactly how you beat a guy. Like when he beat what was that? Like that's how you beat a guy. Like when Elkins beat Bektik, that's the same kind of fight that this guy is. That's the same way he has to beat Kirk. I feel he has to probably come from behind because he's not that. It's not like Jackson is super fast. Like his striking is not the best. Tupuria really exposed it, like how slow he was. I know he's on another level, like he could beat Kirk, but still, he really showed how bad that striking actually is. And Kirk, I feel like that guy has more potential and should be better than he really is. Like, he has shown a good mix of straight shots, body kicks, knees, and he's also shown that he can play comfortable in there. Like, he looked really comfortable versus Daniel Swain. He took the
Yeah.
center control, had good calf kicks, just mixed it up really, really nicely in there. Smashed knees into him. I mean, he did get caught in some armbar and so on. But otherwise, I feel he was doing pretty well. But versus McMahon, his corner was urging him to be active, and maybe he was just tired, but I really feel like he could have been doing a lot more, no matter how tired you are in the third round, and that's where I feel like Jackson has a big edge there. One really cool thing Kirk does though is that he will level change and then throw a jab to the stomach. And that's really interesting. That's maybe something he needs to do here to take some of the cardio out from some of the gas out from Jackson. But yeah, I'm gonna lean Jackson here. Probably cap him maybe as a tiny favorite, maybe like minus 130 or so, minus 120. But I'm not looking to bet him at these odds. But plus 130, I think you got some value in that fight.
Yeah, I do like the Jackson side here as well. I pretty much had the same thoughts that you had in terms of thinking that I'd be on the Camelo Kirk side, especially after you were so good to me in that Makwan Amirkhani fight. But once you actually run that tape back, it's not as good as you remember it because you cashed such a nice ticket that night. But yeah, I think he's in for a tough time here against Damon Jackson, who's very relentless and does not give up on himself either. That Charles Rosa fight, he was having a ton of difficulty in terms of establishing top control in that first round, but stuck with it. And then in the second and third rounds, he started to get it going a little bit more, was able to start controlling him. And we all know that's Charles Rosa's downfall, right? People take him down. He's a little bit too content with playing off of his back. But even in this Kamala Kirk situation, I think that Damon Jackson can still go out and do that. I think he can still land takedowns. I think he will be effective enough on the feet, which is mainly just to close the distance. And then he should be able to get on the hips of Kamala, get him to the ground, and start grinding him out. Kirk, good black belt himself, but I don't know if he's ready to deal with the pressure type of grappling that he's going to be facing here from a guy like Damon Jackson. But in terms of a bet, I don't have a bet on this fight, but I would be on the Damon Jackson side if I was on any side. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Trevin Jones going up against Javid Basharat. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 150 for the Contender Series alum and plus 130 the return on Trevin Jackson now, or Trevin Jones, sorry. Interestingly enough, before we went live here, you pointed out that Trevin Jones got the blonde hair going on, so that's something that we really have to cap in this fight, is that he might have some superpowers and might be able to come out there and start smashing some dudes. But the way that I looked at this fight, I thought initially that the line was kind of based on recency bias, right? What we remember about Javid is him just absolutely putting an ass whooping on Oren Callan to receive his contract to come inside the UFC. But on the flip side with Jones, we obviously remember him getting choked out by Saeed Jokob Kakramanov as the last thing, which is why I think a lot of people were betting Javid. But once I run the tape, man, I'm actually impressed with what I've been seeing from Javid. Solid striker, good 1-2s down the middle, uses his range very well, very sneaky with his submissions as well. He has a ton of different types of submissions on his record. He does a good job in terms of I like to call it disciplined pressuring. Like he doesn't overextend on a lot of his strikes. He does maintain his distance very well. He likes to use his leg kicks a lot to kind of gauge the distance and then let his striking go after that. But even in terms of his grappling, like I said, sometimes he'll force desperation takedowns out of his opponent. Sometimes he forces them to shoot from a little bit too far out. And one, he'll either sprawl very well, or two, while sprawling, he'll look for some sort of choke to try to take advantage of that position as well. Trevin Jones, I feel, for him to have success in this fight, either one, he has to find that big knockout blow. He has some big power, something that we obviously are aware of, or he's going to want to try to drag this fight to the ground and try to grind on Javid Basharat and try to stay out of those sneaky submissions. I'd be surprised if Basharat catches him with any type of submission off of his back. I would be hoping that we see him kind of use that jiu-jitsu to either pull off a reversal or get back to his feet, where he can probably have the better of the striking exchanges. But I think that we'll see Basharat stuff the takedowns. I think we'll see him get back to his feet, and I think we'll see him get back to work with the striking. I think the under 2.5 here is not too bad of a look either, as both guys have finishing capabilities. Under 2.5, roughly around minus 120. I don't mind that. Basharat, he's always looking for the kill, man. He has a tremendous amount of finishes on his record. Trevin Jones, obviously very potent at finding the finish himself. And the last thing I'll say about Javid here, then I'll swing it on over to you. Javid, since his Contender Series fight, he's actually stayed in Las Vegas. He's founded a home at Extreme Couture. He's training with those coaches over there. He's training a lot, apparently, with Jake Shields as well. So I'm interested to see what kind of wrinkles that he could add to his game. But he was originally a London shoot fighter guy. If I'm not mistaken, that's Michael Venom Page's gym. But like I said, since the Contender Series fight, he's now come over to the US, stayed in Las Vegas, hasn't left the US, and I think that's good for him, right? Especially considering everything that's going on in the world, COVID and all that war shit. I know he's from the UK, but to just stay in the US and just wait for another opportunity to fight, lucky him, right? Let me just quickly see when that last fight was, because I know it wasn't that long ago. This year, or this past year, the Contender Series was later in the year compared to the summer that it normally goes in. But the last time he competed was October. So what is that? 5 months later, less than 5 months later, he has a fight, and he doesn't have to deal with any traveling or anything either. So I like the Javid side here, but more than that, I like the under, as I do think that we'll see violence here. How do you see this one going down?
I'm gonna say you're way man if you're betting on this. I despise on this with a passion. Like I try and check the not to make it long topic, but I check the whole totals if anyone actually does really well in totals. And all I feel like the best cappers in there has around maybe 10% return on
Yeah.
investment, which is kind of decent. But I don't think it's anything super special in that area. And with unders, there's so many people throws money away in that. People just love throwing money away. But if you bet the right unders, again, that's how this whole game is, of course. That can be
Yeah.
some value, and you might have a really good spot there. I'm going to be with you here on Javid here.
Nice.
I think the thing I'm surprised about is that people are saying that the reason that like you said people think that he's overweighted is because they go with the Owen Callan fight, right? But that's not even the fight that impressed me. That was against the Alexander Beskovany fight, the Alexander
Yeah.
fight, right? That's the fight that impressed me the most. Like I feel like Javid here has a really high skill level actually. So I was interested in betting this fight, so I took out my tape guide and I just went to work. So I'm just gonna go through this fairly quickly. So like one thing we don't know about Javid is we don't know how good his chin is,
Mhm.
and Jones can crack. I mean, he did get hit fairly clean versus Alexander, but it's nothing too special. Also because when he moves away, that means he doesn't get hit as hard, right? He also has a Taekwondo background, so that means his movement and speed is kind of fluid. If you talk about reliability, he's a very reliable fighter. I feel like he will switch stance, and people who switch stances, like fighters like that, they have a higher ceiling. If you look at all the elite fighters, nearly always, not always, but quite often they have they're able to switch stances, right? And what he will do is he will come out smart, luring the punches out of the opponents, and he does really good work with both his striking and ground game. And cardio wise, I don't think we've seen him really get tired. Like maybe he slowed a bit versus Cullen, but he did have a good top position there in round three. Like, you can't blame him for just using that. And he still landed some heavy shots.
And he got
And
the
in round
finish.
exactly, he got a finish too. And like in the round three, he was able to circle away, avoid getting hit, Yes, Carlin's slow. Maybe he's not the best, but he does have cardio for a 3-round fight. I think he's going to be fine here in that. We didn't see too much resistance in the grappling and the clinch that might be able to tire him out. I mean, we did see some against Alexander, but I haven't really gotten the vibe that this guy has any real cardio issues. And what I like about his striking defense is his defense consists mostly of that, he's able to switch stances, he's able to backpedal away, but not only will he backpedal away, right? He will also circle out. And that's a sign of a good fighter. If they circle out, not just backpedal away. And what he does, he will get close, lure these heavy shots out, tire his opponents, just back away. And when he pushes for pace, when he wants to attack you, he will actually use some offensive head movement. We saw that versus Alexander. He would move the head when he got close, lure these punches out so he could land himself. In regards to defending leg kicks, like I feel like instead of actually checking the leg kicks, he just moves away. He wanted a leg kick versus Calon effortlessly. He just moves his leg. As simple as that. So his in and out movement is really good. And head movement, I always touched on that. He's got good, solid head movement offensively. Defensively, not as much, but he just moves away, so it's fine. Footwork, I mean, he has really good footwork. He can circle away when defending. He did have one issue versus Alexander where he got hit, he got tagged, and he kind of acted in a bad way, like running away, which it was a little bit odd, a little bit concerning. I don't feel like I don't want to put too much into like a 10-second little clip there. Offensively, like with pursuing jiu-jitsu and his grappling, we can see that in his record as well. He can go for guillotines, brabo chokes, rear naked chokes, heel hooks. He's got a good mix here. Uh, and one thing that's interesting to notice about since he has so many submissions, relatively speaking, he has what, 6 submissions and 6 knockouts? Yeah. Wait, no, 5 knockouts. Some fighters are submission over position, right? They will not be as good as a Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist as some other fighter because these guys are just going for submissions over and over, while someone who's actually better than them may focus on just keeping the position, right? But this guy has a good mix. He's both able to go for these submissions, but at the same time, he'll make sure to maintain the position. With a takedown, for instance, we've seen the double leg. What we saw there in one fight, he was able to pull the legs out. He went really high on the thighs. Then Cormier loves to talk about this. People go high on the thighs. Like even if you haven't tried to do a double leg on a person, you can imagine how much better pull you get, right? And that's what I like from his takedowns there. He did it against Alexander there. Got a double leg, would pull his hands out, would pull his feet out. And versus Cullen, he was able to lift him off, right? And when he was down on the ground, he could pull the foot out. Yeah, sorry, it was against Cullen, not Alexander. And he just did really good work there. And in round 3 against Cullen, he was able to drop him with a calf kick. So he's pretty decent heavy calf kicks too. He did jump into a full guard there. I mean, I know he got a finish, but probably a mistake. Fighters are so eager to jump into the guard. Just let me get up, smash their legs, and knock them out. But I think it was fine there. Just ride it out, just get a finish. He was probably so confident, right? And like with the top game, I feel like he does a good job at maintaining this top control. Sometimes he'll work to a better position. Like we saw, he was quite active in the half guard. Then he'll move to the side guard, has some decent control there. He does a good job of mixing damage and sub attempts. Like if anyone wants to learn that, just watch Khabib. That's why he was so good, Khabib, because he would mix that up, right? Pull the legs out, pull the hands out. In versus Cullen, he would use a knee to keep him down. I love seeing that. And with offensive striking, I feel like he almost relies on just making people tired, and then he will attack a lot. And he can do that against Jones. Jones he can crack, but he can lower him out because Jones, I feel he's quite limited. I liked Jones initially on this fight. I thought I was going to bet him as a dog, but I really like Javid here actually. With his chin, though, I said it's a bit of a question now for me how good it is. If you just talk chin and recovery, I see some guys, right? They will cap fighters, and they will talk about, oh, this guy he recovers well, but you don't want fighters who recover as well. You want fighters who doesn't even need to
they
recover.
don't get into a position where they need to get recover.
Exactly, because it's just bad to even bet on a fighter like that in general.
Yeah.
But I feel like Basharat, he has a really high ceiling here. I don't think maybe he's gonna be elite, but I feel like a guy like Jones here, I feel like it's a test he's gonna pass. I will say though, Jones was underrated versus Bautista in that fight. I didn't bet him, but I was so happy I wasn't on Bautista. I think it was at worst it should probably have been like pick him in that fight because he earned that fight fair and square. Like he was landing so many leg kicks in that one.
We remember though that Bautista is always fairly like overrated by the public and all, right? Like him and even Jonathan Martinez, both those guys kind of have a similar style with their striking, but a lot of people like those types of guys. They feel like they're very reliable, other than when they get KO'd, and it's happened obviously with Martinez and Davy Grant, and obviously Jones and Bautista. That's just how it is sometimes. People just have those guys that they stick to for sure. But
For
are
sure.
you betting Basharat in the spot, or you're kind of just sit back and wait?
I got a little small bet on Basharat here.
Okay.
Nothing big, just a little bit. I was asking myself, I have like a checklist of like, is this an ego bet? Because ego bets are gonna cost
Yeah,
you. I had
for
a
sure.
writing on my wall once that said, don't be afraid of losing out on profit, but be scared
Yeah,
of making really stupid effing bets, right?
yeah, that's
But
smart.
I do feel like some value in here. I heard some people say that they want to see him against Jones, see him pass it, and then maybe they'll bet him later. But then the value is probably gone. You need to bet him now. So
Yeah,
a small bet I feel is fine, but there's some question marks on him. But yeah, I'm with you. I will pick him, and I got a small bet on him. And I
I
do
love
think
it.
he's
I
going.
love it.
I'm not sure if he's gonna get it done though. I could definitely see go to a decision though.
Yeah. All right. I like the Javid side as well. Again, I've seen a lot of love for the Trevin Jones side from people that I respect. I get the angle that they're going from as well, but I think this Batrick guy is the goods, and we'll find out this weekend as well. All right. Let's move on to the next fight between JJ Aldrich and Jillian Robertson. We got minus 130 on Robertson, plus 110, the return on JJ Aldrich. Now, you talked about this already in the last fight in terms of fighters that like to go submission over position, and that's exactly what we got with Jillian Robertson, who is always looking for the finish more often than not. I used to kind of like prey on her under 2.5s. Like I just always thought it was a good idea to go for her under 2.5s because she doesn't mind putting herself into trouble to go out there and get the finish. But it's kind of bit me in the ass in the last couple of moments, right? There's the Courtney Casey fight where she finishes it after the under 2.5 mark. There's the Botelho fight where Botelho was just content in terms of just working off of her back. You know, she did a good job in terms of retaining guard, not allowing Jillian Robertson to really get much else offense going from on top other than just a little pitter patter hammer fist to stay active enough. But she didn't even try getting back to her feet. And that's where, you know, most of the submission opportunities start to open themselves up, is when people try to, you know, compensate for getting back to their feet, but then they forget about, you know, protecting their neck or protecting their arm, whatever it might be. That's where Jillian Robertson's so good in terms of snatching up those submissions. So, yeah, boo Botelho for not taking any risk and making me crash on my under 2.5 bet there. But here against JJ Aldrich, the interesting thing to know, Jillian Robertson fought the teammate of JJ Aldrich 2 fights ago, and Miranda Maverick, who's obviously fighting earlier in this card as well. I'm interested to know what kind of information they may have exchanged in regards to JJ Aldrich, as we saw Miranda Maverick go out there, use a very hard-nosed approach in terms of just kind of walking her down and even taking or landing takedowns of her own, and trusting that her submission defense, that she'd be able to stay out of those armbar attempts and those triangle attempts and just rain down shots from on top, which she was able to do on multiple occasions in that fight. I don't know if JJ Aldrich has that type of confidence in her submission defense to go for takedowns in this spot, but if she does, I could see her having some success in terms of controlling Robertson on the ground if that's where she really wants to get this. But I think she will get the better of the striking. That's where her strong suit is. We saw it obviously on display in plenty of fights, even the first round of that Macy Barber fight, winning that first round of the Macy Barber fight, and then eventually getting stopped in that second round. But her striking is good. She closes the pocket well. She strikes, her strikes are right down the middle. Her footwork could use a little bit more improvement, but it's still good enough based on the level that she's fighting at this point. Whereas Jillian Robertson, her striking is way more flash than substance, in my opinion. It's more so just to throw it out there to stay active, to get her opponent thinking about something, and then ultimately she wants to go for the double leg. She wants to go for the takedown. She wants to get you there and start using her jiu-jitsu. I think that we'll see good enough takedown defense here from Aldrich to stay safe on the outside, playing at that kickboxing range that she needs to stay safe, and then she will have, seen the takedown attempts coming from the Jillian Robertson side, and that should allow her to keep this fight upright for the most part. The line movement on this was interesting as well, right? We saw JJ Aldrich run plus 130, plus 140 earlier in the week. Now she's all the way down there around that plus 110 mark. And I agree with that, man. I think that the money should have been coming on Aldrich. I wish I got to the tape for this fight a little bit earlier, because I probably would have got in on that line as well. But yeah, I think Aldrich will see a veteran performance from her here. Last time she got submitted was 6 years ago by Jamie Moyle in her second or third professional fight. I think that was way too long ago to have any merit on how this fight's going to go. And although Robertson is probably one of the best submission threats in this division, she just leaves herself a little bit too much going for that submission, giving up the position. And I think that we'll see JJ Aldrich take advantage of those spots. Outside of JJ Aldrich money line, the over is starting to get away from us right now, but it was at like minus 120, minus 125 earlier in this week. And I thought that was fine because I think that, Aldrich doesn't have any crazy knockout power, but she does stay consistent enough with her strikes that she could tally up a decision victory there. And then even on the ground, I think she will stay safe enough to get out of the submission attempts of Jalen Robertson. And I could see this go out to be a decision victory for the JJ Aldrich side. So either take the plus money on Aldrich, or if you think that Robertson is going to be able to get that top control and control JJ, again, I'd be surprised if she submits her. The over 2.5 at minus 140, minus 145, not too bad of a look in my eyes either. Again, not often you see a women's MMA match with the over hanging around that line, but that just goes to show what kind of finisher Jillian Robertson has been in the past. But I don't think that she'll be able to pull it off here against Aldrich. So pick is Aldrich, no bet, but I am on the Aldrich side. How are you seeing this one, brother?
Yeah, man, I'm a bit surprised about that over. Like the last time I think even saw such a good over was like Roxanne Murder 5 versus Macy Barber was or 1.5 was around to pick him odds,
Yep.
and that's a really crazy over for such a fight like
Even
this.
Josiane Nunes and Ramona Pascal, well, a couple weeks ago, right? They were hanging the over at 1.5 at like minus 130, minus 140.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, why have they made the over like this? And I was thinking it's gotta be Robertson, right? That they think she's gonna finish it. It's gotta be that.
Yep.
Otherwise, they wouldn't put the over like at this spot. And yeah, like I'm with you. I'm gonna go with JJ Aldrich. Like I understand why Robertson is a favorite. It makes sense why she's a favorite because JJ she's a bit underwhelming when you watch her. I remember back in her tough days, right? She was saying that when people saw her, they didn't believe that she was a fighter and all this, right? But I think she's matured now. I think both have improved, but I think when she fought last time versus Demo there, I feel like she had really improved herself. She was really mature in that one. Uh, it is a close fight, but I do lean JJ because I feel like she can defend these takedowns. Robertson just loves to telegraph her takedowns so far out. She's so desperate. Like versus Maverick, she was sitting on the ground and she was jump forward just to get a single leg at the end. Like it's just too desperate from her with these takedowns. I feel like JJ because they have trained together. She knows what to look for. She knows what she has to defend. That said, though, Robertson does have moments of brilliance. Sometimes he actually goes for some really good takedowns. Sometimes he can time it with a really nice level change. And she's really sneaky on the ground. Like she's really crafty. I mean, obviously we all know that she can submit and all this, right? But she's so good at taking the back. Like versus Maverick, she was kind of impressive how she could sometimes get to the
Yeah.
back and into a really good position, right? And I feel like that's one of her best abilities, really. But I feel like JJ is going to have a strength advantage here. Uh, I think, and that's kind of a worry if you bet Aldrich. I feel like he might even take Robertson down. I think maybe it's okay because he can just sit and guard there. But otherwise, I would really prefer just face off, like just Robertson face off the entire fight, just go around and beat her takedowns. Because if you
Sorry.
stay in the
Okay.
middle,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, your mic cut out for like 1 second, but it's fine now. It's perfectly fine.
okay, my bad. Let me know if
Yep.
that happens. I'll switch to another one.
Yep. It was for
Um,
1 second. No worries.
But yeah, like I feel like JJ should just stand in the middle and jab her face off. That's the ideal game plan. I do
Yeah.
think might be a close fight because Robertson. I mean, if she gets her down, it's not just like it's gonna submit her. It can easily go to a decision where she has some top control there,
Yeah.
but she's gonna tire out Robertson, and she doesn't like getting hit. And standing like versus Merrick, right? Two judges gave Merrick the second round, despite Robertson having like her like doing for submissions, having a like top control for like 4 minutes or so. But I think it's because Robertson looks so uncomfortable standing. And like when we score fights, do you live bet by the way? Do you do live betting?
Not often, but like I'll keep an eye on the odds.
Okay, but like if you lie bet, I see a lot of people complain about, if it's a bad decision. But as a lie better, you shouldn't think about what you think. You shouldn't think about how it should be scored. You should think
Yeah.
about, how the judges scored. Like
Yeah.
with the Kim versus Preschiele fight recently,
Yeah.
I was not surprised at all that push scale, I got it. Like at the Betfair exchange, she's plus 130. I took some of
Yeah.
that because when you lose the last round, you get smashed. Like judges love blood upticks, right? You're gonna lose a round, and even if it's not deserved. And Robertson looks so uncomfortable here, and I feel like JJ has leveled up more than her. I think she'll be able to keep it on the feet. I think she'll be able to defend the takedowns. Maybe she'll get pushed up against the cage. But what JJ does well, I'm gonna mention again, she dives for underhooks, and I really like seeing that. By the way, that's one thing I forgot to say about Jones. We gotta give him that. He does dive for underhooks too. He does throw when they separate. So that's also why I'm going small in that fight. But anyway, back to Aldrich here. Her going for underhooks, her doing some knees here. I feel like that can win her a fight here. I mean, Demopoulos is not Robertson level. I know she's quite low level, but she was at least trying her best. She was pushing the pace on her, and I feel it was just a good look for how this fight could look. I think it's gonna be a closer fight than that fight. But if I should pick a side, I'll probably lean Aldrich as a small favorite, maybe minus 140 or so. If you're gonna bet her, probably better at decision because it's like what plus 200, and she
Yeah.
doesn't finish anyone. If she was gonna finish someone, it was Demopoulos.
Yeah,
Uh, but that
exactly.
but that said, that depends on kind of better you are.
Yeah.
Like like some people are money lines, some are props. I like a 50-50 or 75-25. Look at the props separately. Look at the money line separately. Look at because it's two different returns of investment, right? It's a whole big topic. But if I was gonna bet this fight, I'll probably just go with Ali's money line and then maybe put a little bit on the decision line. That's just me. I like to keep it separate that way. I do think there's some value there. But otherwise, go with the over. I would definitely not be betting like Robertson's top here, and I would not be betting Robertson as a favorite, even though her line is coming. I would not be betting her here. So slightly into Aldrich, I think it's going to be a close fight, maybe 29-28, something like that.
I love it. Yeah, I largely agree with your analysis on that fight as well. All right, let's get to the prelim headliner here. Interested to hear your thoughts here. We got Matt Semelsberger going up against AJ Fletcher. In terms of odds, we currently have minus 195 for Semelsberger and plus 165 the return on AJ Fletcher. Now, Semelsberger was hanging around minus 250 for the majority of fight week, but as fight week has gone on, he seems to be one of the favorite underdogs for a lot of people, or Fletcher seems to be one of the favorite underdogs for a lot of people, driving that line down now to, like I said, around minus 190 for Semelsberger. Anders, I'll let you kick this one off, brother. What do you think of this Contender Series alum, as well as how do you think this fight goes down?
Yeah, man, like AJ Fletcher is a really popular dog between a lot of
Yeah,
sharps. I know a lot of sharps on him. What I always find interesting is when we see sharps on one dog and we see the public on the other, right? And if you watch the topology, they don't bet units like BetMA,
no, they
but they
don't.
just pick. But they're on Simmelsberger here, and I don't
Yeah,
like agreeing with the public, but I agree with the public. I think that Simmelsberger is gonna get this done. I feel like I feel like this is a bit like reminds me little bit of the Benitez fight. Like with Benitez, he had everything you wanted in a dog, but it tricks you. It tricks you because you don't look deep enough into it. You need to look into the fighter's personality, if they're game in their eyes. And like Onama in that fight, he was game. You could see in his eyes the whole thing. Like I feel like often people they will passion a fighter due to just one bad performance. For instance, I think you can be quite profitable if you just whenever a fighter lose, start betting them, and whenever they win, start betting against them. Because the public and even sharps, because MMA is such a niche market, both with sport and especially also the capping game is so new. Even the good cappers are not even that good compared to like in 10 years from now, most likely, right? And I feel like people are so easy to overweight, underweight a fight. And I totally get why people bet AJ here. I mean, obviously the physique of him, the tenacity, he has showed he can go 3 rounds. He has the cardio probably. He, he has some good shots, with some strength. And I know Semelsberger might not be the most impressive guy, but I feel like not long ago people were quite high on him. I mean, I know he's the favorite, right? But I feel like he's being a little bit underrated. I think people betting AJ think that he's just gonna take him down, and then that's gonna be it or something like that. I feel like Semelsberger here, he's just a little bit underrated. I feel like he can defend. I don't think that he's just gonna be put on the ground and that's it. And I gotta say, if you can survive against Chaos Williams, who's been underrated by the public and Sharps for ages, ever since he faced Mawono, then I feel like you're probably not gonna get KO'd here. I feel like he's in an okay position. What I don't like about Semelsberger is that he does get tagged a hell of a lot. But I just don't feel like I want to bet AJ in this spot, especially not when and that's just for me. Whenever I see a lot of people and a lot of shops on a dog, it's like I feel like a few shops will talk about AJ, and then everybody else starts tailing that and speaking about it, and becomes this echo chamber, right? Um, but I do see maybe there's some value on AJ. I don't mind a bet. I know some bettors have bet 2, 3, 4 units on it. I don't mind it too much, but I just don't want to put my money here on him. I feel like there's some better dogs I'd rather put my money on. I'm not betting Semelsberger either. If I'm gonna pick, I'm gonna go Semelsberger. But I'm not super confident in it. I just don't want to put my money on a guy like AJ here, who's so unproven. And after a first round in the UFC here against Semelsberger, who's tough, who's gritty, I'm not sure that those guys are going to be so happy in that bet. But I'm not going to be surprised that if he just blasts him out and shows he's good value. For me, it's just a pass fight.
Yeah, in terms of a prediction, I am going to go with the AJ Fletcher side. I do feel like I remember when I broke down the Semelsberger and Jason Witt fight. I actually picked Jason Witt in that fight because I expected him to go out there and establish a grapple heavy game plan, something that we've seen Semelsberger kind of struggle with on the regional scene and against questionable competition. Now he's taken steps up in competition. Jason Witt, we never really got to see that fight play out. Obviously, he gets started with a naked leg kick in that fight. But AJ Fletcher, what's for somebody with no wrestling background, seems to have a very sneaky wrestling game. And I do think at a certain point he will be able to get this fight to the ground. Then it's going to come down to will he be able to hold him there, and will Semelsberger, kind of just quit on his back, or will he actually look to pull off reversals or try to get back to his feet? I just remember not being super impressed with Semelsberger on the regional scene in terms of the grappling that he showed, and from what I've been seeing from Fletcher, albeit limited, and the most that I think we've seen him take a grapple heavy approach and go the furthest in a fight was his last amateur fight where he had to go 3-minute rounds, and he used his grappling advantage pretty much very predominantly in that fight. I see him kind of doing the same thing here. However, I'm interested to see how Semelsberger uses that 8-inch reach advantage, as well as I believe a 3 or 5-inch height advantage that he's going to have. But I do wonder if he's able to snipe AJ from the outside, how AJ is going to react to that. But from what I've seen, AJ does a good job in terms of closing distance. Again, he's always giving up size, it seems like, in his fights, but he does a good job in terms of closing the distance, getting off the shots that he needs to from the inside, or going for takedowns and landing them as well. So I'm going to go with the Fletcher side, but just like you, I'm a little bit skeptical in terms of the level of competition we've been seeing AJ Fletcher go up against. And even on the Semelsberger side, like we have to see a little bit more from him. Sure, he went out there and dusted the mat with Carlton minus over 15 minutes. But outside of that, we see him starch Jason Witt. We saw him starch Martin Sano, and then we obviously saw him lose that Chaos Williams fight in a fight that I thought he would do very well in, right? I am one of those guys that have been underrating Chaos Williams for a long time, and I felt as though Semelsberger would be able to put together a much better striking display, but Chaos Williams put it on him, and it didn't seem like Semelsberger had much to kind of come back with him at him with. But now this is a good fight to kind of see where Semelsberger's at, or if AJ Fletcher is the real shit as well. So I'll pick Fletcher, but no bet on my side. I just want to sit back and watch. All right, that's a wrap on the prelims here. Shout out to the 120 live viewers that we currently have. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us on this Friday afternoon, at least on the East Coast. I know my guys across the pond, so it's getting a little bit later for him. But make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Show my guy Anders some love as well. The link to his Twitter channel is Twitter page is in the description below. And I know he has a couple other things that he wants to share. That will wait right before the main event when we have the most amount of viewers on as well, so most people can hear that. Show my guy some love. All right, let's get into the main card here. Very interested to hear your thoughts about this one. We got Bruno Silva going up against Alex Pereira. In terms of odds, we currently have minus 190 for Pereira, plus 160 the return on Bruno Silva. I'll give my quick spiel about this one, and then I'll send it on over to you. But I took the underdog shot on Bruno Silva here. I took a plus 150 shot. You're talking about a 28-fight veteran, MMA veteran, going up against a 5-fight MMA veteran, a guy that was struggling to keep Mihailidis at range. And if Bruno Silva wants to go out there and try to showcase his kind of clinch game or his cage work or even his takedowns, things could get very interesting here. How effective he is with them, that remains to be seen. But I feel as though he's been training that stuff a lot longer than what Alex Pereira has been doing in Glover Teixeira's gym over there in Danbury, Connecticut. How much is Pereira going to be able to soak up from a guy like that? That remains to be seen, right? We didn't get to see much of him in that first fight in the UFC. considering he was held up against the cage for 5 minutes against a guy with, suboptimal takedowns in the Mihailaitis side. And then obviously we saw Mihailaitis very drained cardio wise, going back to his corner for round two. And then obviously we see him get flying kneed into oblivion that night. But for people thinking that, Bruno Silva is just going to go out there and strike with this guy and get laid out, I think they're just not giving him enough justice. The guy has insane knockout power in his own right, but I do think that he'd be fighting a fool's game plan if he goes out there and just strikes with Alex Pereira. This is an MMA fight. This is not a kickboxing fight. There's no need for you to put yourself in that type of danger against a guy that can crack like Alex Pereira can do. I do think that we'll see Bruno Silva engage in the clinch. I think we'll see him try to drag this fight to the ground. I know he said it in his interview at the pre-fight presser this week that he's going to look to strike. I quote tweeted that immediately. I'm like, I'm going to come back to this tweet once he shoots halfway into that first round, and I'm going to rub it into everybody's face. But hopefully he does that, because if he does, I think he has the cardio to go out there and push Pereira up against the cage, similar to what Mihailaitis was doing. And I don't think he'll drain himself out doing so. But I also think that he should be able to complete takedowns in this spot, even if it's holding down Pereira for a couple of seconds at a time, just wearing on Pereira, trying to get that power to drain out of him and just kind of, stifling him as much as possible. That'll be very smart for Bruno. But Bruno, throughout his career, has shown solid gas tank, solid power in terms of being able to withstand it from minute 1 to minute 15, or even to the 20th minute of those 5-round fights that he used to have on the M1 global scene, where he's fighting takedowns for the entirety of that fight until he lands that knockout blow. Now it's probably going to be him fighting for those takedowns here, and hopefully he's going to be able to secure them. Dude is a black belt. I'm not sure to what degree, given that he can just go out there and just knock out anybody that he wants to knock out. But I think he's much liver than what a plus 150 indicates. I wish I waited a little bit longer, because now I'm seeing plus 170s sticking around, which I wish I took advantage of. But even at plus 150, I feel pretty good here. A lot of hype on the Alex Pereira side. Absolutely, right? Like, how can you give him a minus 170 or minus 190 against a, somewhat of a proven UFC guy after his last performance, which was him again getting holed up against the cage, and then he just lands a spectacular flying knee? How is that giving you minus 170? It's because of the hype. It's because of the name. It's because he knocked out Israel Adesanya in a different sport. That's why he's getting all this public love. I get it. He has a tremendous amount of power, but I think that people are failing to look at this fight from an MMA perspective. And I think in that aspect, Bruno Silva should be able to go out there and put together a damn good game plan to take home a victory. So Bruno Silva, even by submission, plus 1,600. I think that's worth a little bit of a dabble if he wants to get crazy with it. Or he could probably just control Alex Pereira and take home a plus, I believe it's 900 on him to win via decision. I don't mind seeing that either. But yeah, I like the Bruno Silva money line plus 150. Sign me up. Am I talking crazy here, Anders? Bring me back down. Am I too high on Bruno Silva, or do you see what I'm seeing as well?
I mean, I would definitely not be recommending betting Pereira at these odds here because, like you said, he's so unproven. And these were Adesanya fight, I mean, that can definitely tilt some people that they're gonna bet him, they're gonna be on him. And like, I think also one of the reasons he's got so much hype is like he looks like granite. Like you can chop his legs, you can punch him in the face. He doesn't really seem to be that phased. I mean, Thomas Powell, he does have some power, and he was able to crack him a little bit, push him back once or so. But otherwise, it seems like this guy can just eat it. But
Yeah.
against a guy like Bruno Silva, like you said, he has a lot of knockouts. Like, very proven guy. I mean, he came back really well against Andrew Sanchez and Jordan White as well. Jordan White was first of all an amazing fight in that one, and he was showing good fight IQ. He was defending from a tight clinch there, and he just let his hands go. It was easy way because Jordan White was not fighting smart in that fight. He was just so focused on keeping that tight clinch that some people do. Like I remember was it Silva against Derek Brunson? He would just keep his tight clinch and get smashed, and he didn't let it go. There's something about the tight clinch in fighters. Some fighters are just bad at letting go when they should let go because they think it's a good position or something like that. But yeah, I definitely see the Bruno Silva side here. I do see why he can be valued because it is one of those proven UFC guy versus a lot of hype guy, right? And nearly, if you bet those a lot of the times, especially at dog odds, you're gonna make a hell of a lot of money. So I definitely see why people are gonna go with Bruno. I do see why you go with Bruno Silva here. I'm not gonna be betting Bruno Silva here. I do actually think a Pereira is gonna pass the test here, but I'm not interested in betting him here. I do think that Bruno Silva might tire in the later rounds. I don't know how good Pereira's cardio is. He might tire out, especially if Bruno can go in and tap some strength for him. But I feel like if Bruno tries to go for takedowns, I don't think he's necessarily just going to go and submit him here because he never submitted anyone. But against a very tired guy, he might get his first submission. But I don't think it's going to happen here. And every fight, every round starts standing. And I feel like Pereira might only need a short bit of time to really hurt Bruno Silva if he gasses it a little bit. Like versus Sanchez, for instance. I know he was getting control there, and later on it was Sanchez who was gassed. But Bruno Silva, after a few punches, like he was letting his hands go, right? He was gassed too. So the question is, can he hurt Pereira? Can he really do a lot of damage? And everyone can get hurt. Of course, Pereira can get hurt too. Especially if he cracks him on the temple, on the chin, and all this, he's gonna get hurt. But I feel like maybe is Bruno Silva's gonna tire himself out, maybe, and then Pereira can come back really strongly. I don't think it's necessarily just gonna be some quick KO for either of the fighters. I definitely don't want to bet Pereira here. There could be some value on Bruno Silva here. For me, I'm just gonna enjoy this fight. Maybe get a good live bet in. But I'm gonna go with Pereira. I do think I'm gonna go with if I should pick the knockout, but I'll not bet knockout. It's the same for props. I'm not a big prop knockout guy. I feel like if you're gonna bet props, there's so much more value on submissions. Because for some reason submission artists are so underweighted with their props. It can be like plus 500, 600, like Muniz and Ibrahim and so on, right? But yeah, in this fight, I'm gonna go with Pereira here. I do think he's gonna pass the test here. But I'm not gonna be shocked that if Bruno Silva is a really, really good value bet here. And I do think we're gonna have a few people in the competitions here taking Bruno Silva, and it might be a really, really good bet. But I don't feel I have a good enough read on this fight. I think there's too many question marks because maybe Pereira's going to pass the test, maybe not. I do think he's going to pass it, but I'm not interested in betting it. And if you're going to bet, I definitely think probably Bruno Silva you should be on.
I love it. If anybody missed the image that I released earlier this week when somebody posted a picture of Alex Pereira playing with Kid Izzy, I thought I'd just bring that on the screen for you guys real quick here. Watch out. Bruno Silva is coming.
That's good stuff, man. That's excellent. I hadn't seen that before.
All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Drew Dober taking on short notice Terrence McKinney. In terms of odds, we got minus 165 on Dober, plus 145 the return on Terrence McKinney, who's taking this fight on very short notice. He actually fought 2 weeks ago where he was able to get that submission victory over Faris Ziem in the first round, adding to his total now of 11 out of 12 fights finishing in the first round. The guy is absolute banshee in that first round, very difficult to deal with. And I think that Drew Dober is unfortunately going to have a lot to deal with here as well. I completely understand the line movement on this because we had Terrence McKinney closer to plus 200 earlier in the week. Now he's closing in on that plus 140, plus 135 range. The guy is very difficult to deal with in that first round, man. And I think that taking another shot on him to win in round one at plus 400 is not too bad of an idea. It's almost like the Abdulrazak Al Hassan thing. Most of his wins coming in that first round. If you get a bet better than plus 500 or plus 600, it seems almost like an auto bet because it can happen at any moment. It obviously happened in the Alessio Di Carico fight, in a fight where he was like a plus 180, plus 200 underdog. But even just to take him to win by knockout was plus 650 that night. And it obviously paid off, even though a lot of people thought that Di Carico would cruise in that spot. Here, though, I'm interested on the McKinney side, but more so, I'm interested in the chalk. That is, the fight doesn't go to decision. It's all the way up to like minus 250 now in certain spots, minus 230 on a couple of spots. I actually parlayed that with Azamat Murzakanov earlier on the night. I do think that one of these guys is going to find the finish, whether it's McKinney early in the spot, getting the takedowns. Drew Dober's given up 11 takedowns in his last 3 fights. Not a good look at all. I feel like McKinney will be able to be successful in getting it to the ground. And he does such a good job in terms of consolidating position on top and then either finding a submission or trying to get some ground and pound off. And I think he'll be successful in doing that here against Drew Dober. Dober, on the other hand, if he gets out of that first round, first of all, it's an automatic live bet on Drew Dober, as he'll more than likely be losing that first round. And then he should start to take over after that. And I think he's good enough to eventually find that kill shot against McKinney, who you got to question his preparedness for this fight, especially taking on super short notice and against a veteran like Drew Dober. If he doesn't get him out of there early, he overswings on his shots a little bit too much. We might see Drew Dober stuff a couple takedowns as McKinney starts to slow down. And I think it's just a matter of time before Dober finds that knockout blow himself. But in terms of a prediction, I'm actually going to go the McKinney side. I think McKinney wraps up something early in this fight. The majority of Dober's losses coming via submission. I think McKinney can make that trend continue here. But the spot that I like the most, fight doesn't go to decision. I have that in a couple parlays myself. Again, a little chalky, but I feel like a finish can transpire from either side here. What do you think of the analysis there, Anders? And ultimately, who do you think wins this fight?
Yeah, man, I think you made a good bet. If you're gonna bet unders, that's one of the fights I would probably take here because
Yeah.
it's one of those fights. If fighter A wins in round one, right, and gets the finish, or fighter B is gonna win in round two, round three. I mean, can't be sure. I'm not a big under guy, I said, but if you're gonna bet unders, that's an under I like. But usually,
Yeah.
otherwise with unders, I focus on guys who are just fragile, who quits, who doesn't want to be there, stuff like that, right? And like McKinney, like he's such a game fighter. Like he wants to be there. He wants to perform. And that's what I love about guys like McKinney, Onama, Victor Henry versus Basilis. Sometimes you can just see they have something in their eyes. You can just see how game they are, like game fighters. There's something people don't even cap, like how game a fighter is. It sounds silly, but it is definitely something to cap. And he is game as hell. We saw versus Favola, it took him what 7 seconds. He was a dog. It was a really good bet there you could have done. And Siam, I mean, I think why people were talking about Siam there was that Siam had just beat was it Luigi Vendramini,
Yeah.
and a lot of people were on Luigi there, and I think that maybe why the line was where it was. Um, I don't want to bet Dober here pre-fight as a favorite. Like you said, it's a perfect live bet. Makes perfect sense to wait. McKinney might get another sub. Could be great value on this one. I do think though, that people are gonna be maybe overly betting the sub now because like people want to get in on it now.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's big odds. I can't blame them for doing that. Um, it's a bit MMA math stuff, but like Dober has only lost to Brad Vidal, Islam Makachev, and Benil Darius in the recent time, right? And it's fine to lose to those guys, right? I don't mind that. Brad Vidal was a tough fight. If this becomes a fight like that, like the McKinney is gonna lose. I don't want to say that McKinney only has one round because we don't know what's gonna happen. I don't mind people betting McKinney here. Personally, I'm going to go with Dober. I feel like people were quite high on him a while ago, but now it's kind of like people lost that hype for him for some reason. But he's not that bad. I know he's not that good on the ground, but I feel like McKinney is getting a little bit too much hype now. I know he's still a dog, so it's weird to talk about hype, but a dog can still be not enough of a
Especially
dog,
with
right?
how much the line moved there too, though, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Dober. I think I'm not sure actually if he's gonna get it done in the later rounds because McKinney seems game as hell. I could see him staying in there. So if I was gonna bet Dober, I'll probably just take him straight up or something like round three decision. Uh, Usually don't really want to talk too much about those kind of props because you cannot bet much on those props. And
Mhm.
like then we got just gonna have guys betting 5 units on BetMA some stupid prop that you can't get any money on, right? But yeah, I'm gonna take Dober like you, but I'm not gonna be surprised if McKinney just go out there and gets another performance. And if he does that, he does super well, then we gotta have to be on the other side like the next time because the hype is just gonna blow completely out of the water there.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. Again, a ton of hype on the McKinney side here. And we can obviously see that in the line movement. Let's see if Dober can halt that momentum that he has right now. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. We got Khalil Rountree going up against Carl Roberson. In terms of odds, we got Roberson as the slight favorite here at minus 125, plus 105 the return on Khalil Rountree. Now, Roberson actually opened up as a plus 150 underdog, held steady around plus 105, and now recently has been taking a ton of action, making him the slight favorite in the spot. I'll actually let you kick this one off, man. How do you think this matchup between two primary strikers is going to go down, and ultimately, who do you think ends up winning?
I think Cal Robertson should thank the UFC for finally giving someone who's going to strike with him.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
giving Marvin Vittori and Brendan Allen. I was on both those guys. It's brutal for him. He's not going to win those kind of fights. I mean, Brendan Allen is a bit of a mental case. I feel like he can be really good. He can be really bad. And as soon as he gets pressured, then he just cracks, right? But Cal Robertson was not a guy to do that at all. He's a guy I feel like people were quite high on, like really early. Really felt he had a lot of potential, but now I feel like we're kind of seeing where he should be. He's gonna be in that middle range. I feel he's never gonna be like a super top fighter. He's gonna be in the middle range, be able to beat some decent guys. Khalil Rountree, I remember him way back from Tough when he fought was it Corey Hendricks, and Corey Hendricks hurt his foot there. He at one like it's quite a while ago now, but there was a time where Khalil Rountree he would post on was it Instagram, I think it was, about some mental issues. I can't remember
Mhm.
if it was retirement or just struggling with life and so on. And that's a big red flag to me. I don't want to be on guys like that. I remember when he was facing that Bukaukas, I really wanted to bet him pre-fight, but I just couldn't. I couldn't put my money on a guy like Khalil Rountree there. But hindsight, I feel like it's okay to do it as long as he's a dog. I feel it's okay to bet him, but I don't feel like you can bet Khalil Rountree as a favorite. I mean, of course you can't say that black and white, but that's gonna be some really good argumentation if you're gonna bet Khalil Rountree there as a favorite. Here, as a he's a small dog now. I'm just gonna call it a pick and fight here. I think there's some value on Carl Robertson. He finally gets a stand-up fight like he should. He's more technical. I feel like the longer a fight goes, the better it is. I do feel like Khalil Rountree, he does fade a little bit. He's obviously a more powerful guy. He can actually land some pretty good heavy leg kicks. Really good power, of course. If he lets his hands go and Kyle often just gets stuck up against the cage and get cut off, he can definitely get knocked out. But otherwise, I think he's just going to be slowly but surely a bit more technical. And I don't think necessarily he's going to submit Khalil Rountree or not even knock him out. Maybe I'm going to lean decision again. I think the patience and how mature Carl Robertson is finally getting. I think like the whole debacle with Marvin Vittori, I feel like maybe that has led to him become a bit more mature now. I don't know if he is. It's just the vibe I get that he's becoming like a man now. Like he's becoming mature now. He's becoming who he should be. And one thing I like about Carl Robertson, what I noticed was that it's really good that he fought Roman Kopilov because that he's southpaw, and otherwise I think this would be one of the first times he's faced a southpaw. Can't remember if it was the first time ever, but like Khalil Rountree is a southpaw, and with knockout power, it's just scary to me. Even though even though it's two southpaws here, I like that he's got that experience under his belt, and I feel like it's gonna be a close fight, but I'll probably cap Carl Robertson around like minus 160, minus 170 or so, probably minus 160 or so right there. So I feel like there's a bit of value on Carl Robertson here, and I think Kelly Rountree is going to look good in the beginning, but then we're gonna see more with Kelly Rountree we've been knowing for a long time, and I think the hype is going to die down on this fight because I just feel like it's so weird to see Kelly Rountree and Carl Robertson at pick and fight. It just doesn't make sense to me to see that. A few fights ago we would not have been seeing that, and I'm not a big stat guy, but I feel sometimes if you face some decent fighters like Khalil Rountree he's faced, Ian Kutaleba, Marcin Eric Anders. He's had some decision fights too, and so has Carl Robertson. So in this case, I do feel that we can look a little bit at the statistics, and Khalil Rountree's statistics are just awful. Like he gets hit a lot, he doesn't land much, his striking is not that good, while Carl Robertson's stats all over the place are just much better. I'm not putting too much into that, but I feel that he just has the edges, and for every second of this fight, he's gonna get more and more of an edge. So I'm gonna go with Carl Robertson to get the decision here.
Yeah, I largely agree with you as there as well. I think it's just a public perception on Carl Roberson as to why this line is as low as it is, because that Marvin Vittori debacle, remember he missed weight, and there's the whole lobby incident, and everybody just has this bad taste in their mouth of Carl Roberson. Not to mention the bad fight IQ he showed in his last fight against Brendan Allen, playing leg lock and footsies with him, and then obviously getting his leg snatched up there. But I'd be surprised if Khalil Rountree goes out there and submits this guy. But if this fight's going to be primarily a stand-up fight, you got to lean on the combinations and the pace of Carl Roberson compared to Khalil Rountree. That he comes out there fast and have you right off the bat. He's able to hurt you, but if he's not able to put you away, he starts to slow down. And although he put away Bukowskis with that weird that leg teep that he had, or that knee teep that he had, or that stomp to the knee that it was, Bukowskis was just intimidated from the jump. It seemed after he got rocked and hurt in that first round, and we see visibly Khalil starting to slow down. Right, you see it clear as day. But Bukowskis is able to do nothing to change that around. But I feel like Carl, with the maybe technical better striking here, we should be able to go out there and put together a lot better offense than what Cleo will, and should take home a decision victory as well. I definitely like that spot myself as well. The over 1.5, even at minus 145, I don't think that's a bad line either, considering I think a lot of people think that Cleo is just going to go out there and dead him immediately, or him getting deaded immediately too. But we've seen some fights that probably shouldn't have gone the distance go the distance because we see Khalil start to slow down on his pressure and his pace, most notably that Marcin Prachnio fight where he just could not get past the kicking game of Prachnio. But yeah, I do agree with you. I like Robertson here. I might end up pulling the trigger myself. I haven't made a bet, and the fact that it's still hanging around minus 125 at certain spots, I might have to make the bet myself in this spot because, yeah, I do agree with you. Largely, he is the better mixed martial artist, and I think we'll see that come to fruition tomorrow night. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got a couple left to go. Next up, we got Alex Caceres going up against Sodiq Yusuff. In terms of odds, we got minus 265 now on Sodiq Yusuff and plus plus 215 the return on Alex Caceres. Interesting fight here, right? Sodiq Yusuff coming back after his first ever loss in the UFC. I believe that was last April to Arnold Allen. Was able to cash Allen in that fight, as I believed he was the slightly more disciplined striker of the two, and I thought he'd be able to get the better moments, and that's exactly how it played out. Relatively a low volume fight. It was really much a chess match, it seemed, but it did seem like the Arnold Allen was getting the better of those exchanges, ultimately getting his hand raised via decision that night. Sodiq Yusuff at times seems to slow down later in fights, right? We saw in the Andre Fili fight where he gives up the round 3, but it seemed like it had to do with the fact that he was grappling heavily in that second round. Now, there wasn't crazy scrambles or anything when he found himself on top of Andre Fili, but that's not how Sodiq Yusuff normally fights. And I think me and you have seen this or been around this for long enough that where you see a fighter kind of go after a game plan that they're not used to going after, sometimes they'll gas them a lot quicker than, if they were to just go out there and kickbox for 15 minutes. So is the situation for Sodiq Yusuff in that fight. So here against Caceres, though, I do think he's obviously the more hard-nosed striker, has a ton of power on his shots, can march down Caceres here, which I think he's going to be able to do. And I do think he'll eventually actually find that chin of Alex Caceres. Now, Caceres hasn't been knocked out since his fight against Francisco Rivera, I think over 8 years ago at this point in time, as the most of his losses are coming either via decision or submission. But I don't think he's fought a heavy hitter like Yusuff in that amount of time. Like I believe Yair Rodriguez is up there, but again, not a heavy hitter like Sodiq Yusuff. There is one more name that's kind of slipping my mind right now as to seeing Caceres go a full 15 minutes against the power puncher. But I feel like the way that Yusuff fights, how he counters effectively, and most notably that Sungwoo Choi fight, where we see Choi having massive success in that first round, landing beautiful counters, especially after Bruce Leroy's throwing some of those lazy kicks at times. I could see Sodiq kind of sniping him with one of his big shots and putting him down in that spot as well. I'm not rushing to the window to bet, Sodiq Yusuff at minus 260. I think the guy's a talented fighter, but it does seem like his productivity and all that starts to fall off the later the fight goes. He's a great 2-round fighter, though. Don't get me wrong. The guy is very solid for 2 rounds, very tough to put away, very tough to deal with, but it seems like he does slow it down a little bit in that 3rd round, and that just doesn't make me feel too good, especially going up against a veteran like Alex Caceres. Caceres is still very sneaky, right? He's on his lifetime best record right now, I believe, in the UFC in terms of a 5-fight winning streak. Questionable competition, albeit, happy to cash him as a plus 170 dog against Chase Hooper a couple fights ago. But Sodiq Yusuff is just another animal, man. I'm interested to see how he bounces back after his first ever UFC loss, but I do think that Yusuff will go out there and eventually find that kill shot on Caceres within for the first 2 rounds. So the pick is Yusuff. Not too happy to bet him at minus 260, but he's going to be on a Hail Mary parlay. Let's be honest. He's going to be on one of those lottery ticket parlays that I have. Anders, what do you feel about this fight, man?
That's a good thing about lottery ticket parlays in MMA. It's much higher chance of hitting them than in real life with some stupid lottery, right?
Exactly.
And they do hit. I actually do think some of them can actually be plus CV. I mean,
Yeah.
why not do it? It's much better doing than these stupid lotteries. Just keep doing them.
Just picking numbers. Like we have no advantage with the numbers. With fights, we know the variables that we're working with.
Exactly. Like, but the one funny thing about parlays, it's actually incredible. I'm just gonna have to touch on this just really briefly. It's actually incredible to me how many people, even chaps, don't even understand how parlays work. Like, how often do you hear that? Oh, I don't want to bet him straight, so I'm gonna put him in parlay. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. You're not creating value in parlays, right?
Yeah.
And you have to see parlays as if it's just one fighter. You put 2 fighters in the parlay, go check what the combined chance of you hitting that is, and then check return on investment. That's how to bet parlays, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm with you on Sodiq here. I do think he's gonna get the job done. Also, the cage here might help him in this fight here. Um, yeah, like I don't think it's gonna be maybe just an early knockout. I think maybe round 2, round 3. If Sodiq cannot beat Caceres here, and he has some issues. I mean, this is a fight he should pass. I don't know how much value that is at minus 250. I was considering it
Yeah.
myself for betting it, but I feel like if you bet favorites, you just have to be right. That's just my opinion. Because if you're not right with favorites, nearly like you gotta have a really high hit rate. Otherwise, your return investment is gonna be really low. You're gonna lose a lot of money on favorites. And favorites are so tricky because you feel you're doing good, you feel you're doing well, and then boom, you had two bad favorites and you lose all your money and minus return investment, right? But I do think maybe you can cap Sadiq Yusuff at maybe minus 400, minus 350 or so here. Caceres, yes, he has matured. He has become a real mixed martial artist. He's been on a really good run, like you said, 5-5 win streak. He's doing really well. And yeah, Sadiq in round 3, that's not fun to be on, but in this fight, I feel it's fine. If you look at the stats, Caceres has quite a few decisions already, and he usually, if you look at on BMA, he will lose round 1. He does win 53% of the time according to the judges. Like this is based on the judges' scorecard combined, right? For all his fights. But he will win the later rounds, while Sadiq, he'll win round 1 and then he's gonna start losing. But in this fight, I feel like if Sadiq starts out well, I think he's gonna cruise the decision and get the late KO here. It's he's pretty technical. He's gonna go for knockouts. He's very confident in himself, has good power, has good striking. I don't think it's a fight I want to put too much thinking into. Really, I do think he's gonna get it done. Not rushing to bet him like you. Gonna be really shocked if Caceres gonna get it done. It's one of the fights I hope a bunch of people in the Dog One Night competition are gonna take Caceres here because that's gonna make me very happy. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Sadiq here. I think he's gonna get it done, but I'm not sure about if it's worth betting him at this spot. I'm fine with passing. I'm fine with maybe a small bet if you want to, but I feel like there's better favorites in this card, and I'm not a fan of betting a bunch of favorites one card. I mean, you should see each fight as separate. You can have one bet.
Yeah.
You can have 20 bets or so. But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably gonna pass this fight, but I do think there's a little bit of value on Sadiq Yusuff here, but I'm not rushing to bet him like you.
Love it. I love it. All right, let's move on to the co-main event here between Marlon Moraes and Song Yadong. In terms of odds, we got minus 265 on Song Yadong, plus 215 the return on Marlon Moraes. I'll hand this one off, throw over to you to kick off first. How do you feel about this one?
I mean, if Marlon Moraes doesn't win this fight, he's probably gonna be cut from the UFC, right? And he knows that he has to win this fight. It's now or never. He's on such a bad losing streak. He's just one of those guys, he has a lot of muscles. He tires himself out, and he has a good round. I mean, versus Maverick, I bet Maverick there, and that was a bit dicey. Maybe that was a bad bet by me. I did think he was gonna get it done, and he did. But I feel like I understand why people bet round 1 on Marlon Moraes here, right? That's almost the only way he can win here. But at the same time, you get pretty good plus odds here at over plus 200, right? So if you want to take a shot at that, you can do that. But Yadong Sung, right? He's so young, he's so skilled, so aggressive, really, really, really good fighter. He's able to backpedal, circle away, good striking, good combos. He just sets everything up really well. When he was facing Julio Arce, I was not sure about taking Yadong Sung there. I was not watching to bet Arce because I'm quite high on Julio Arce, but he passed that test flawlessly. I mean, it was just a beautiful performance. And I think we could see a repeat of that here on Marlon. Marlon, I think he's just done. I think he's just done. Um, and a guy with such bad cardio, like when do we see guys having bad cardio, then suddenly get good cardio again? I don't think I've ever really seen that. Bad cardio is just really hard to improve, no matter how much you work on it, right?
There's only
And
one fight that I remember off the top of my head was Darren Stewart, who used to have like atrocious cardio, even getting like rear naked choked by Julian Marquez with no hooks in, and then in his next couple fights actually goes a solid 15 minutes against a couple opponents. But yeah, for the large part, if you have cardio issues more often than not, you always have cardio issues.
pretty much, yeah, exactly. And I think what's gonna happen is probably most people are gonna predict. They're probably gonna predict Yadong Sung by KO in round 2 or round 3. And yeah, I do think he's gonna get the finish. I was thinking, wow, I told one of my friends, that's finally I'm gonna be betting an under here, right? Um, but I'm not. I think there's some value on Yadong Sung here. I'll probably cap him around minus 400, 80% chance. I'm not gonna cap him bigger than that. And that's maybe a bit of a reach because Marlon is a really skilled guy. Let's
Yeah.
not let's not forget that he is really really skilled. He had one of those. Who was it? He was fighting. He fought. Who was it? Let me just check quickly. He was against. Oh yeah, Rafael Assunção, when he was on was it a 25 win streak or so? Like people,
Yeah,
yeah, people. No, it was Jimmy Rivera. Sorry, he was on a 25 win streak, I think it was, and people were so hyped about this fight, and he just smashed through him. He got
head kick.
yeah, he got a head kick. He was just doing so well. He was so hyped. I was big on Marlon. I thought he could get it done versus Henry Cejudo, but
Yeah.
that's where I really feel we saw the cardio issues come into place, right? That's when he really just started just it's just incredible how fast he can gas versus what front. It took like was it a few minutes, and he was already
Yeah.
like his arms was gassed out. It was really weird. And I feel like he has to go for broke in this fight. Round one, he shouldn't change his style. Just go out there and fight. But I feel like both fighters are a bit sort of like a counter striker. So I'm not really rushing to bet Yadong Song in the distance here. If I'm betting Yadong Song here, I'm just taking his money line. I do think he's gonna get it done. I don't mind people betting inside this distance of the under here, but I'll probably just be going Yadong Song here. I think he's gonna get it done, and I think it's just it for Marlon. He's not that old really, but some people, if you start early, then you're just gonna get worn down earlier, right? And I think Marlon is just done here.
It's interesting to see him actually go over there to Thailand to try to rejuvenate his career as well. But that's like the second or third move he's made in the last several years, right? He went from Mark Henry's gym in New Jersey down to ATT in Florida. Then from Florida, now he's gone over there to Thailand. But the issue seems to be not so much his cardio. Yeah, he has bad cardio. But I was talking to a coach about this. Actually, I'm sure he doesn't mind me talking about it. But Rob Font's coach, Tyson Chartier, I was talking to him about it, just trying to get his thoughts on the Song Yadong fight. And he says he doesn't believe that Marlon has a cardio issue. He more so has a fight IQ issue. And I kind of understand this slightly just due to like the Rob Font fight. He goes out with the grapple heavy approach. When have we ever seen Marlon Moraes try to go out there and just grapple fuck his opponents, right? That's not what he does. He goes out there and tries to strike with his opponents. So obviously he gasses out in that fight. Rob Font finishes him later in that first round. Then the next fight, I believe, was the Merab Dvalishvili fight, where he hurts Merab and goes ape shit trying to finish him. He expends all of his energy trying to finish him. Then he has nothing to lean on when he doesn't finish him, and so he gasses out there. But then you see the Henry Cejudo fight where he has a great first round. Then he starts to fall off as Cejudo starts to push the pace. So I think it's a combination of the fight IQ issue as well as the cardio issue. But the thing with Song Yadong is that guy's going to come forward and that guy's going to throw some heavy shots, and it's going to force Marlon Moraes to stress out a little bit, start to move on the back foot. If he can't get any offense off himself, I think he's going to start to crumble. Excuse me. It's almost gonna. I'm getting flashbacks of the Oleg Shayjuk versus Shamil Gamzatov fight, where I think it could go down similar to that if Marlon Moraes can have no offense at all in terms of his striking. If he has no success there, I think Song Yadong can just march him down and get the finish. This is so the parlay that I was been speaking about the whole entire time was that this fight doesn't go to decision, as well as Dober McKinney fight doesn't go to decision, as well as Murzakanov money line. And I believe I have a unit at plus 266. I could be off on that. I'll quickly pull that up. But that is the parlay that I have here because I really like these fight doesn't go to decision spots, man. I think there's a solid spot for both of those fights to finish inside the distance, especially this one. I have one unit at plus 226. That's what it is. Sorry, on that parlay. But Marlon, first round. Other than that, Song Yadong, he's shown a mighty chin in the past. I do think it holds up in that first round, and then eventually he's going to start to stalk and finish Marlon Moraes either in the second or third round. But I just took the fight to go to the decision because I feel it's probably the safest out of any of the options that we have presented on the table in this spot. All right. That brings us to our main event. Shout out to the 130 live viewers that we currently have. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Show my guy Anders some love as well. Follow him on Twitter at Fimbul Fight MMA. Link to his Twitter is in the description below. Anders, is there anything else you actually want to plug here before we get into the main event, brother?
About his fight card.
Just plug for yourself. Like, do you have like a Twitter account? Do you have you want to plug Bet MMA? Anything that you want to promote for yourself?
Oh yeah, like if you guys want some free picks, what I'm gonna start doing because I'm a big dog guy. You can see that in the dog one night competition. That's you can see that on my return investment currently for this year, 46% return investment, undefeated for the year, 11-5 win streak. I'm big on dogs. Like people love betting favorites, right? But for me, I feel like if you take most betters and if they would just flat bet, but I don't think that it's genius. Most people think they're genius at staking. They think they're gonna bet 4 units on a favorite. 1 unit on a dog, right? Favorite loses, dog wins. But you bet 4 times the amount on a favorite at like what -200. Why not take that on a dog at +150? It's actually fairly easy to have a really high return investment on dogs. Nearly everyone cashes on small dogs. They overperform. You can have a 20, 30, 40% or even more on dogs. If you have it higher on that, maybe you're not betting enough dogs, you can say, but like 20, 30% on big dogs, small dogs +120 and bigger, it's definitely possible in this one. And I'm a big dog guy, so yeah, if anyone wants free dog picks, follow my Twitter. I'm going to be posting some free dog picks there. I'll come to my website, fimbul5picks.com there. I'm going to also be betting, posting some betting guides, because I feel the betting community in general is wholly uneducated. Like, there's so many things that are lacking, and there's so many. I mean, I'm not gonna call anyone out, but there's so many scumbags out there that will use cheap marketing tricks. Like me being on a win streak, that's fine, right? But it means nothing. You can win one event and then lose 10 and still be profitable, right? Like, look at return on investment, look at breakdowns. If you're gonna spot fakes and so on, of course, check if they attract them better may, but also check their process, right? Like for my guys, I always tell my team, I want you not just to copy my bets, I want you to understand your bets, right? Maybe you're gonna start betting yourself, right? And so on, and you can do a bet yourself. But yeah, I really feel like we should educate the betting community. I think you're doing a great job with this. I like also Mike's MMA, who's educating the betting community, because we really need to do this, because it's so easy for so many scumbags out there to deceive people, because they can show a lot of stats in your face, right? And it looks good if you don't know what you're talking about, but only the hardcores of the betters know what they're talking about, right? So I really feel like we should do that. And maybe if you want, maybe we can set up sometime some show or something where we go, oh, biases, different strategies, staking, and so on. If people are into that, it could be a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know a lot of people are actually uh, keen and wanting to hear that. I know Mike's MMA picks. He's doing like an MMA seminar type of a segment that he does on his YouTube channel as well. And I agree. I don't think there's enough of that out there. A lot of it is just given picks. That's really all it is. But there is no real education in terms of like the percentages and all the extra things that you should be looking for, rather than just looking to bet. This guy is the main pick. You should be going after this guy. But why should you be going after him, rather than just saying, okay, he's the pick? So yeah,
Sure.
I do absolutely see that approach as well. All right, let's get to the main event here. We got Thiago Santos going up against Magomed Ankalaev, -550 on Ankalaev, +400 the return on Thiago Santos. Interesting fight, right? You got Magomed, who's probably a fight or two away from fighting for a title. Had he not slipped up against Paul Craig in his UFC debut, there's an obvious opportunity that he could have already fought for a title, maybe even already been champion, because I do think that guy has that type of skill set. He's very patient on the feet. He waits for his opportunities. His strikes landed per minute are not like eye popping, but his strike defense is great as well. I believe that's sticking around 62% as of right now, but he does a really good job in terms of hitting without getting hit. He's a master at kind of just staying disciplined and waiting for his openings to counter. And even in a fight against Volkan Oezdemir, where Oezdemir tried asserting his dominance with his striking right off the bat, even landing a big shot on Magomed Ankalaev early, he gets dropped later in that round, and all of his confidence is sucked out immediately. And you can see Ankalaev really start to take over after that particular moment. The only time we've really seen a bit of weakness from Ankalaev was obviously that fight against Nikita Krylov, where he gave up the first round. But you see great attitude, great resiliency from Ankalaev in terms of turning that around in the second and third rounds, taking a grapple-heavy approach and grinding out Krylov in that aspect. So it's great to see him kind of make those changes in fight as well, especially when things are not going his way. But there aren't many times where we see things that are not going his way, because he's always in control in the majority of his fights. He's 29 years old. He's entering his prime if he's not already in his prime. He has a great striking game, great wrestling game if he needs it. And I think that he remains disciplined enough here to go out there and beat a guy like Thiago Santos, who even in his own right is showcasing more of a disciplined approach since his John Jones fight, maybe even since his Jan Blachowicz fight, which I believe was right before that. But what we knew of him before was the berserker, the guy that goes out there, either goes out on his shield or gets the kill himself. But we haven't seen that in the last couple of years. We see him try to take a little bit more of a measured approach. He did that against Johnny Walker, paid off for him. Tried doing it against Glover Teixeira, could not deal with the wrestling and grappling of Teixeira that night, ultimately succumbing to a submission that night. But I feel like Magomed Ankalaev will take whatever Thiago Santos gives to him, whether it's a low volume kickboxing fight that goes the full 25 minutes. I could see Ankalaev edging him out in that aspect. If he wants to go out there and tries to go balls to the wall and play into Ankalaev's counter striking game, more than likely Santos is looking up at the lights and knocked out. You know what I mean? We know this, Anders. One of the last things to go in any fighter is the power. So we have to still respect the power that Thiago Santos possesses. But the longer that this fight goes, I think the more that we see Ankalaev, get his reads down, get more comfortable, and realize what he needs to do to get his hand raised that night. It's very tough for me to see anybody beating Ankalaev at this point in time. Not to mention the age discrepancy here. 9-year is the youth advantage here for Magomed Ankalaev. Thiago Santos is no spring chicken, man. 38 years old is very rough, especially after that double knee surgery he had before the Glover Teixeira fight. Not good for the wear and tear on his body. I think this is a horrible stylistic matchup for him. The thing is, how do you bet it though, right? Do you bet Ankalaev inside the distance? Do you bet him to win via decision? I lean more so on the decision side, but I do actually have him included in my lock of the night play, which we'll share obviously very, very soon here. But I obviously did the smartest thing, which is try to get in as early as you can, so you're not left sucking on the minus 500, minus 600 line. I got Ankalaev. I'm going to say Ankalaev by decision because I do think that we see Santos a little bit hesitant at times in terms of trying to engage, especially after he eats a couple shots here from Ankalaev. But again, Ankalaev is more than happy to deal with the slow-paced kickboxing fight, and I think that's what we're going to get here. So I know a lot of people are on the fight doesn't go to decision, but I think this one actually goes over here. I like the over 3.5 as well, around even money. As it all comes down to how Santos approaches this fight and what we've been seeing from him lately. Slow paced kickboxing fight. That's what I'm expecting. And Ankalaev should get his hand raised. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I'm fully with you, man. It's really hard to see Santos win this fight. I mean,
Yeah,
when you see Santos at first, I mean, he looks scary, right? He's big, and like you said, the KO power is the last thing to go, and he will still have the ability to knock out Ankalaev. He definitely will be able to do that. Is it gonna happen? Probably very unlikely, right? The old 3.5 sitting around minus around picking odds. It's funny, like I feel like some of the really good bets like that, they're over 3.5. They're so often a picking odds for some reason. I see a lot of people betting that, and yeah, I do think that could be a good bet. I don't think that Magomed Ankalaev is just gonna go out there and blast Santos. I mean, yeah, it can happen, but it would be stupid of him to do that because if you look at the power balance, right? The longer a fight goes, the more Ankalaev get into the zone, right? The power balance is going to go to his favor, right? Even more so. So why, even if you have a huge amount, like a huge chance to win, 80% chance to win by KO in the first round or something like that, why do that? Why not take your time, take it slowly, and then slowly pick Santos off? And I think Magomed Ankalaev is going to do that. He has said that he thinks a finish is going to give him a title shot, and sometimes you shouldn't put too much into what fighters say.
yeah,
But I mean, Santos might just give him that finish. At the same time, he could also be super passive, like he was against Maverick. The age, the wear and tear, his bad legs. It's definitely not a dog I want to bet on here. And for me, Magomed Ankalaev, he passed the test in Özdemir.
yeah,
We could maybe say that when Santos was at his prime, or just a bit younger, a bit less worn out, right? He was probably better maybe than Özdemir. But I bet Magomed versus Özdemir in a parlay, and I almost never do parlays. I don't like parlays. But I bet him there, and I felt he was going to pass the test. And Özdemir has KO power too. He hits hard, he hits dry. Uh, since he passed this test, I think he's going to pass this test too. Um, I said I'm not usually a parlay guy, but I did actually add Magomed Ankalaev to my Kevin Holland play. I would probably cap Magomed Ankalaev at 90%, and that's really hard to do in light heavyweight with KO fighters, such power, right? But does Santos really win this fight 1 out of 5 times? I don't think so. Uh, I think he has that 1 out of 10 shot. Magomed Ankalaev, for me, he's just one of those three special fighters. And the two
yeah,
others is Islam Makhachev and Hamza Chimaev. They're the three special fighters here. Magomed Ankalaev, he's nearly a perfect fighter. The only weakness we really saw was against Krillo, like you said.
yeah.
Was he dropped the second round or so? Like he wasn't doing
First
that
round.
well there. First round it was okay. But then he came back and yeah, I mean it's probably a test he's gonna pass. Probably maybe get the late KO if he realizes he needs to get this finish in order to get the title shot or whatever he wants, right? But yeah, I don't mind the over. I actually don't even mind. I'll probably not take him now, but I don't mind betting a straight bet on him earlier. If you're gonna bet Santos, probably one of a few cases where I would take the KO.
Yeah.
You just gotta be really careful with this old prop stuff. Like with Ngannou, right? How many would not
Oh,
just take Ngannou versus
I know.
Gain? I mean, he's not gonna win a decision, right? But we saw what happened. We saw that
Yeah.
happen so often in main events, right? Fighters come prepared to main events. Fighters know it's 5 rounds. I can take my time, right? So the fights just go longer and longer. And what we also see in MMA, as fighters get better and better, they get better surviving. So I think we're going to see more and more decisions, even though the fighters get better as time goes on. So yeah, the overall might be a good play here. Personally, I just took him earlier at his money line. I think he's going to get it done. Maybe round 4, maybe round 5. So when he puts a pace on, I don't see Santos winning this one, and I think it's it for him. I mean, if he's going to show something, why didn't he show something against Wakic when he had the chance there? He was doing nothing, right? And Magomed Ankalaev, if Santos tries to do anything, I think he'll be more than happy to put his lights out.
I like it. I like it. I love to hear that type of confidence, especially that you have him at 90%. I put him at 95% myself, just to be honest. But yet we're still in the 90s. That just shows how confident we are on the Magomed Ankalaev side. Everything seems to be in his favor here. Again, though, it is MMA. That's why we never put it at 100% because anything could fucking happen, and we could see him, maybe clipped by some crazy heel kick or something like that, and not even see it coming. Like something like that could absolutely happen. All right, let's get to our most confident plays of the card, or the lock of the night play card that we have. So I'll kick things off here. My favorite and most confident spot is a small parlay. I got Miranda Maverick and Magomed Ankalaev parlay together for -157. Went pretty deep on that earlier this week when the lines are a little bit better. I think that parlay probably plays out closer to -180, -200 at this point in time, given how much steam both of those fighters have taken. But yeah, those are like my two most confident spots on the card. I'd be surprised if Maverick stays at kickboxing range with Mazo, which is probably the only way Mazo wins that fight. And then on the flip side with Ankalaev, I'd be surprised if Santos clips him, puts him out, or anything like that. I don't think there's a high percentage of a chance of that at all happening, especially given how disciplined and like legit Magomed Ankalaev is. He's very disciplined, very patient, doesn't overextend on anything. Very rarely do we ever see him hurt. He took some big shots from Volkan Oezdemir as well. And I feel like he very much learned from that, which is why he was able to make the adjustments in that round to ultimately clip and hurt Volkan as well. Yeah, I'd be surprised if he slips on a banana puke here against Thiago Santos and takes the L. So that's the lock of the night play that I'm going to go with. Anders, what's your most confident play on the card?
I'm gonna go with 3 units on Asamat Murzakanov at -170. That's the most. I mean, obviously, I would probably otherwise pick Magomed, right? But I'm not gonna bet him now at these odds, right? So I'm gonna go with Asamat. I'm actually really high on Tafan. I was high on him against Mike Rodriguez, and people were telling me not to bet it, and it was bad and all that stuff, right? But I feel like if you're high on a fighter or if you're low on a fighter, and now you suddenly want to bet opposite, listen to it because there's a lot to intuition and subconsciousness. Gut feeling in MMA and MMA betting is a real thing. I read a
Yeah.
lot about that because I was unsure, but we got the experience, right? We see the fights and the subconsciousness. The first thing you think about, stick with it because most of the time it's going to be right. So 3 unit Asamat here, I'm going to cap him at 70%. Right now, the odds indicate a 61.09% if you get him at -157. Sorry. If you get him at, oh no, that's not right. If you get him at -172, sorry. So that's around a 10.5% return on investment, and that's where my limit is. It has to be at least 10%. Otherwise, I'm not going to bet it. If you bet him earlier, you got a really good bet. But even betting him now, I think you're going to get a really great bet. I'm very confident in him here.
I love it as well. I do have Asmat included another play of mine for this card, so I'm glad that my guy Fimbul is on it as well because that gives me just that little extra bit of confidence that I need to make sure that parlay or that play is just going to hit as well. All right, Anders, honestly, I appreciate you joining me for this show. This was a lot of fun. I know a lot of people learned a lot as well from you, how you kind of go about capping fights, how deep and stuff you go into your fights. I'm sure a lot of people are appreciative of that. I'll give you the platform one last time if there's anything you want to share with the viewers right now, and then I'll wrap this thing up on the back end, brother.
Just I said, if you want more picks, if you want guides, if you want any questions, talk fights, talk betting, got betting questions, hit me up on Twitter. I always try and take my time to everyone. If anyone you out there bet on Better May, track your own bets. If you want fights added, you can contact me there. I try to give back to the community. Even though I do research of fights, I also want to give back as much as I can. I really want to educate people in this. We need to get rid of all this tout stuff where people are just, selling cheap marketing tricks or win percentages and all this crap. I feel like if I can say one thing, if you're gonna look at a capper and judge for skill, look at the return of investment, mixed of course with a decent sample size and then some decent profit. It's not enough just to bet a plus 200. It's not enough to have a 90% win rate if you're just betting huge favorites, right? But return investment really is the best indicator we have for skill of this game. And in that pace is I don't like bragging, but in that game, I'm one of the best there. So if you want that, if you want to follow a good capper, follow me there.
There you guys go. Bet MMA tips, the holy grail of the betting world. If you're not on there, you're probably just trying to hide something. Let's be honest. But
Yeah, exactly.
again, Anders, appreciate you joining me for the show. I can't wait to have you back on as well. Good luck on your bets tomorrow, as well as everybody else, the 135 of you that are still with us. Appreciate you guys hanging with us on this Friday evening. Tomorrow, Fight Day live chat, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll be right here with you guys, taking all questions and comments in the live chat. And in about 2 hours or so, I'm actually going to be on Instagram live as well. If anybody wants to hop on and talk some bets as well, that's where you'll find me. All right. On behalf of myself and Anders, appreciate you guys checking out the show. Good luck on your bets. And let's end this off with War Murzakanov. That's what I'd like to start off with. Just to give my guy Anders a little bit of extra confidence, a little bit of extra hoorah on the end of it. Good luck to everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. Always love speaking to you, man. Honor and pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. You're in your spot here, brother, and you'll definitely be back. Good luck, everybody, and I'll see you guys tomorrow right back here for the Fight Day Live Chat.